All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, welcome, everybody. It's Friday night. The Law of One. Reese, welcome. Risen Nation, welcome. I saw Denise earlier. Welcome. Let me take down this overlay here, right? Put myself up in full screen here so you guys can see me without having to look at the other screen there. There we go. Cool. All right, it's Friday night. Check this out. Law of One. Crazy business going on in the world. I was running a lot, talking to people, and then running into to do this. Brooke, welcome. Denise, welcome. Right? Put on my glasses. I can see people. Share this out. Like I said, share this out. I shared it out in about 3 or 4 places. Well, I'm live in 3 places and shared it in 3 more places. Right? So, share this out. So, we're on session 72, I believe, unless I calculated that wrong, because I think we finished 71. I'm not even sure. I didn't have time to check. I was busy. I was talking to people. My sister's birthday was yesterday. She turned 60. One of my sisters, my youngest sister, turned 60 yesterday. And she was out with friends of ours that we grew up with, that are friends of hers still. Still friends of mine, but I don't talk to them very much. And they were out having a great time today. Three girls out having a great time today. So she was telling me, my sister was telling me about that. So I was on the phone with people, and then I was talking to my sister, and then I was dealing with my mom, trying to get lunch and stuff for my mom. And then I was talking to a couple other people, Brooke, one of them, right? I talked to her for a minute. Peter, welcome, brother. I didn't see you there. Look up Reed, and then Rick's there too. Good, welcome. So, yeah. Oh, and Cassie. There's Cassie, too. See if I put on my glasses and look at the chat, I can see all you guys popping in and saying something, right? So, welcome, 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 welcome. Peter, I still need to call you and talk to you. We'll have to set up a time. I'll try to get a hold of you after today here and find out when you're going to be available so we can talk, because I know you do gigs and I know you do a bunch of stuff and you're a night owl, but I still need to get a conversation going with you. So we'll have to hook up. I keep saying that. I keep not doing it, but it's been kind of crazy. So I've been dealing with everybody else and stuff going on. We're going to have to talk. Okay. So session 72, I believe. That's where I got primed. So I think we finished session 71, but I don't know for certain. So I apologize if I skip a few questions and then jump to session 72, because I seriously didn't have time to listen to the podcast. And I still had session 71 written in my phone, but when I started listening to it, I realized that we started it last week, so I'm pretty sure we finished it, right? Right, yeah, Cassie said, and then we talked for 2 hours. Busy morning, yes. Right, yeah. Right, Peter said, I know I haven't been there officially since last year, and then we have detected a lot of stuff what's happening, but fires and more going on, obviously lots. Yeah, so right, Peter, yeah, so yeah, that too, right, the stuff that's going on, right, that too, yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about. Most of us are talking behind the scenes. We just haven't had time to find out if you can get on there and talk with us. But I need to talk to you as well, and then go from there, and we'll start getting back into, because we're Ray's back. I got Stephanie back. And so we've had, Cassie and Stephanie, or Cassie and Ray talking, and we've had the 3 of us on talking, and the group chat in the Law of One, and I talked with Ray and Stephanie, and we talked, and so we got to get everybody reintegrated. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's, especially going forward in 2025, and Ray and Peter, I know you know what I'm talking about, because we've talked about that, especially going forward in this year, right? So I know that you know what I'm talking about there. So we need to really communicate and touch bases, because we have a few things we need to go over, and then we have group things we need to go over as well. Okay, so we're on session 72, right? Weird stuff going on in the world. Not going to talk about politics right now, but we just went through a portal opening that just closed, an Octuran portal that just opened up, an activation portal, and the energy was raining down on us. We're getting ready for that. Closed on the 6th, today is now the 10th. So I think the portal is officially closed, but don't quote me. I didn't look at it. I know it was supposed to be open January 1 to January 6th. So there's a lot of you out there that were having some issues until just this week. So a lot of you out there that might be hearing my voice may not have understood, why am I having headaches? Why do I feel like all this crazy energy? Why am I emotional? What's going on with my body and things like that? That's above and beyond normal stuff that was normally going on for that time period from the first of the year until the 6th, for that 6-day time period there, almost 7 days. And here we are just now on the 10th, 3 days later after the portal. There was a portal that opened. You can look it up. It was an Octuran portal that opened up, and it was an activation portal, and that energy hit the earth. Now we're going into a planetary alignment. I think, don't quote me on the date, I think it's the 26th. I keep getting the 18th and the 26th confused. So I think it's the 26th where all of our planets are going to line up again. So we're having that alignment of planets that's supposed to line up with the center of the galaxy. That's going to happen coming up in this month, by the last week of this month. So that's going to cause another activation. So just when you think things are going to quiet down, we're going to have that. And you can already see it in the night sky. If you're watching the planets, you can already see that they're aligning every night. They're getting a little closer to be lining directly up. I had people send me pictures already saying, look at that. You can see them every night. They're closer and closer to being, they're going like this in the sky, and they're pretty soon they're going to be right dead like that. So if you look at the night sky and you have that, ability to see the night sky, yeah, Reese said that explains a lot. Yeah. So there was a portal that just closed, and a lot of people were having some issues. And then I don't remember if I had a chance to tell you that when we were talking, Reese, and when we were in the group, when you were talking about your visions and your dreams, that might have been that activation portal. I don't remember if I got a chance to do that because there was a lot of us talking in that room, that chat room, the other day. So I didn't I don't know if I got a chance to even say that then. So I'm sure you know about it now, right? 21st. Thank you. Risen Nation said it's the 21st is the alignment. See, I knew I was getting the date wrong. So thank you for correcting me on that. So Risen Nation, let me put that up on the screen. So the 21st is the alignment. Okay. And then 6 planets will align. So the 21st is the alignment. 6 planets will align on the 21st of January. Yeah, thank you. He said, you're welcome. Or they said, I don't know if it's a he or she, they said, welcome. So thank you. So the 21st, I knew I was wrong when I was the date. I'm like somewhere between the 18th and the 28th, or 16th and the 28th. I don't know the exact date, 21st. So the 21st of January. So that's 11 days from now. You might want to look at the night sky if you don't have storm clouds above you at that time period, or anytime between now and then, because you'll be able to see those planets already starting to line up. So you're going to have 6 planets from our solar system lining up with one another. And of course, you'll be lined up with the sun, but also heading out into the Milky Way galaxy there. So that's going to be another activation that happens every time, because just the vibration of those planets lining up. And it doesn't stay very long because our orbits are all different. So the alignment, I don't know the exact time, maybe Risen, maybe what time, GMT time of the day that they're actually going to be dead epic center lined up, because we're all moving, so we're going to get in alignment and then be out of alignment pretty quickly, within minutes, within an hour, we'll be out of alignment because all the planets are moving at different rates of speed in different orbits. But the 6 planets are going to line up. That doesn't happen very often. So that's kind of cool that's going to happen. I thought so. I had that sense. Risen Nation said I'm male. I had that sense, but I didn't want to, these days you can get in trouble. If you identify with a cat and I say he, then you might get offended. So, but I had the sense that you were masculine, you were male. Okay. So, what I'm getting, he says, it is 1850 UTC. Okay. So 1850 is, what is that? That's 4. Am I getting that calculating right? No, 6 p.m. UTE. Okay. So you guys can figure out where you're going to be on the planet at that time, to know what that is. Right. So that's European, right? UTC is European time. So that I'm GMT -7. So if it's 1600 or 1800 at that time, Reese said the 28th is the alignment. See, I thought it was the 28th, and he's saying the 21st. Now I'm going to have to look into it. So 1:15 Eastern, right? Eastern time. Okay. So that'll be PM then, right? Not AM, because if it's 18:15 UTC, it'll be 1 p.m. Eastern. So that's 3 hours from that. So I'll be at 10 o'clock my time, 1, 12, 11, 10. Yeah. So 10 a.m. for me will be the actual alignment. But see, I thought it was the reset. He thought it was that he resets it is the 28th. I thought it was too. I'm going to have to look into it now, because now we're getting two numbers. Resets the 28th and Risen Nation says the 21st. So I'm not looking it up, so I don't know. Risen said that's one on the 25th. Apparently multiple alignments will be happening. Well, I can see that it would, because you're going to have, as you know, each day, because they're already lining up, each day you're going to have different alignments. So I was under the impression that all of the planets in this solar system were going to line up on the 28th. So it might be that on the 21st there's going to be 6. And then that would suggest that a couple more will come into play before they're all out of whack. Either way you look at that, we're looking at, let's say, a week or two coming up, starting somewhere. And that's why I was getting maybe starting on the 18th, going into the 28th, and probably into the end of the month, you're going to get an alignment that's going to be going bing, 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 off and on. These alignments each day are going to line up, and they're going to be one planet, then, then 2 planets, and then 4 planets, and then 6 planets, and then 7, and who knows how many we have, because there's a few out there that are what they call, small planetoids now, where they're not actually calling them planets, right? The next we're going to have, the Englishman that went up the hill and came down a mountain going on, where people are going to be redesignating what they don't call planets. Like Pluto got undesignated a planet to a planetoid. And who knows, maybe that'll change. Eggs were bad for you, and then they were good for you, and then they were bad for you, and then they were good for you, and then they were bad for you, and then they were good for you. In my lifetime, that's probably changed 100 times in the 57 years that I've been alive. Every other minute they're saying good and bad, and now they're just saying both. People who want to sell you eggs are saying it's good, and then other people are saying it's bad, and it just depends on, it's the internet now. You have to look into it yourself and figure it out these days, because all that craziness that's going on. Cody, welcome. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did now, because I just happened to look down and see that Rick said hi to Cody. He said, Commander Cody. Hello. So, yeah, so there's alignments going on. And so we just had an activation from the Octuran portal that just closed on the 6th. Probably didn't solidify until even today with the energy dissipation. Then here we're going to have in 10 days. We're going to have, or 8 days, starting around 8 or 9 days from now, we're going to have planetary alignments lining up that only happened a couple of times in my lifetime that I'm aware of, one not too long ago. But they have to happen multiple times just because of the odds of it. It's not like they're completely off, but I guess they are kind of. So I don't know. I didn't look that up to find out when the next one will occur, right? So Brooke, welcome. Who else am I missing? Somebody said hi to Jamie. So hi, Jamie, if you're here too. And I don't know who else is here. So if you don't say anything in the chat, I only see numbers. Okay. So we have alignments coming up. Those alignments are going to change the energy frequency of the Earth as well. So we're going to have activations happening from that. So just be aware. Also remember that we have full moons and new moons happening in that same time period. Okay. So be aware of that. Look at the alignment of the moon. Look at the alignment of when the moon is moving in and out of your sun sign. At the same time that you should be aware of that stuff at the same time that you have these alignments happening, because it's affecting people that are in that time. The alignment that we just had, the portal that we just had, didn't affect me as much as it did everybody else, because of most people who had the moon closer to their sun sign at that point had more emotional issues than those of us that don't. The moon is coming into my sun sign. I don't know. I'd have to look at my phone, but I think it's today or tomorrow. So I wasn't as sensitive to that stuff, but a lot of people, even within our own group, were having problems. And we didn't get to discuss it as much as I wanted to. And one-on-one, I was discussing it more than I was in a group setting. And I apologize for that. It's just because of a group setting. There's more people that are interacting and talking. And so I want to say something about it, and then other people start talking, and then I forget about it because the conversations moves off to something else. But here, I have everybody's attention so I can stay a little bit more on point. So you're going to have full moons, new moons, and you're going to have more activations just this month alone. So you should look into that and be aware of that. Joanne, welcome. You should be aware of that stuff. That those things are going to be happening. So be aware, galactic alignments, along with full moons, new moons. Pay attention to your sun sign. Where is the moon in your astrological sign at that time? Especially if it's a full moon and the moon is in your astrological sign. And if that coincides with galactic alignments with these planetary bodies here in our solar system, that's going to cause a lot of energy flux for you personally. So some people that are sensitive to it are going to feel it anyways. Then if it's on a new moon, it means one thing, a type of energy. If it's on a full moon, it's going to be another type of energy. If it's around your birthday, it's going to be another type of energy. If it's around your sun sign, it's going to be another type of energy. You need to be paying attention to the magnitude of these events that are happening. This is why we teach you guys that you need to get involved with learning about yourself and learning about nature, because if you're not paying attention to these things, you don't understand, more importantly, what's happening even to you, around you, and to your psyche and your personality and your bodily functions, your meat sack, as Ray would say, your avatar, and your spirit. So you got to be paying attention to those things and be aware of the different energies that are affecting you and people around you in your life. Okay, so I haven't started the law of one. Let's go ahead and do a sound check. You guys let me know if you can hear this okay. And I'll double check my sound volume here and make sure, because I know that it's too low already. So let me go ahead and we'll start the law of one. We're on session 72 of the law of one this week, because I believe we finished 71. And if we didn't, I apologize for that. Like I said, I was really busy today and didn't have time to actually listen, but I'm trying to make sure we finish sessions each time so I don't have to worry about what session we're on and what question we're on, because it's not as easy as doing it before, when I would be able to look visually and track that, because I can see it on the screen now. I don't have it on the screen anymore, so I don't do that. So it takes a little bit more time. So I try to end at the end of a session so I know that next week we start the new session. All right, let me go ahead and start with session 72, the law of one.
On October 14, 1981. 72.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 72.1 Questioner, could you first give me an indication of the instrument's condition, please? Ra, I am Ra. This instrument's physical energy distortions are as previously stated. The vital energy level has become distorted from normal levels, somewhat downward, due to the distortion in this instrument's mind complex activity that it has been responsible for the, shall we say, difficulties in achieving the appropriate configuration for this contact. 72.2 Questioner, was the banishing ritual that we performed of any effect in purifying the place of working and screening from influences that we do not wish? Ra, I am Ra. This is quite correct. 72.3 Questioner, can you tell me what I can do to improve the effectiveness of the ritual? Ra, I am Ra. No. 72.
Snarky Raw, gotta love that, right? Peter says, I apologize for the long message. Don't worry about that, Peter, right? It's fine. It's all got to do with the codes of zero. Right now he's giving you some code. Let me put it up on the screen so you guys can see the visuals there. I'll read it to the people that are listening on the MP3 broadcast, right? It all has to do with codes of zero. And so the message that he wrote is 00110-001. He says, so I got to do the code of what is that? Rubbish forecast devastation, sometimes forest. And that's Peter with his accent talking to his phone. And it's not picking him up right. But then he's going into code again. And he's got 01, and he has the triangle symbol 010 triangles. Oh, I know what this code is. I know this code. 101. So it's, let me say it again, 01 triangle or pi or 369, the code 010 triangle or 101. I know that code. Random force, and he said I can't see the official code. So yeah, I know that code. You and I have talked about that code before, Peter. It's been a while though, but I know that code. He says it's all got to do with John Patterson's 0010001. Yes, yeah, 01. Wait, let's do this again. 00110001. Yes, it does. And I knew that when I saw that. When I started reading it, I knew exactly what you were referring to. So if you guys know anything about that, you can look that up. Look up John Patterson and look up John Patterson's code, and then look at Peter's code that he was giving us there in the thing, right? You need to look at that. So yeah, so the first one at the top when he was saying right 00110001. Right. And so the way he wrote it the first time, because there was a dash in there, I didn't notice it. But the way he wrote it the second time with the triangle in between the two, then I recognized the code. So, yeah, you guys should look into that. So, that's actually a good thing that you brought up, because the binary code that during Rendlesham Forest, and I can't think of his name right now. It's what's his name? I can't think of his name, but the officer that was there was Jim Penniston, who was an American Air Force man, officer that was stationed there in England at Rendlesham Forest. He went out with a contingent to go and find this light that was this UFO that landed, and he actually went over and saw it and went up to it and touched it. And we had him on. I produced, and actually I think I was on interviewing him on that one on Ancient Aliens Worldwide. I produced that because I'm the creator of Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook. And we had him on and we talked to him about that. And then he told us that his buddy, who was the partner that wrote the book about that, we had him on as well twice. We're going to have him back. It's in the works right now. We're talking to him because he had translated when Jim Penniston touched the UFO, he got binary code in his brain and he didn't understand what it was because he didn't know anything about computers, but he knew that it was driving him crazy. So he just wrote it down and it was this long code, and the CIA got a hold of it and they were trying to crack it. And I saw their version of what was written. So I was able to look at it, and I also saw what they thought that it meant and what it translated to prior to me talking to him. And I didn't tell him that part on air, but I did start telling him some of the stuff that I suspected was going on, specifically when he touched the aircraft, the spacecraft. He noticed that when he turned around and he was looking, nobody else was moving. Everybody didn't come over to where he was. And at first he thought they were just staring at him. Then he realized that they were not moving. And he walked up to the spaceship and he touched it. And this is important. And you'll see where I'm going with this. It has to do with what Peter was talking about. Chandra, welcome. So Jim Penniston walked up and he touched the spacecraft at Rendlesham Forest. And he got the binary code in his head. And when he turned around, he realized that nobody else was moving. No one else. So none of the military personnel. And they were all back a ways from him. They didn't want to walk up to the craft. They were afraid. They stopped moving, and he walked up and touched it. So then he turned and he walked back over to them. And when he questioned them about it, how come you guys were, afraid to come over here? And, what was going on? And as it turned out, they said he was there for a long time. And he said, I was only there for a few seconds. I walked over and I touched it, and I turned around and walked back. So they checked their watches, and his watch was off by like 15 minutes from everyone else's watch. And he said that on the live, and this was a few years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago now when we did that, but it's still on. You can go to Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook and look at their videos and scroll back, and you can find that interview. And I said, I believe that was a time dilation because the spacecraft had just gone transdimensional. And so they were doing transdimensional warp, and that because of that, there was still a time dilation within proximity to the ship. And he looked at me and his eyes got big, and he said, that's exactly what the CIA said. I don't even understand what you're saying, but that's what the CIA said. How do you know that? And I said, because I know what the CIA knows, not what I know about what you're telling me about, but I know the same information that they know about time dilation and UFOs. And he said, you need to talk to my partner who wrote the book. And I went to talk to him, and he didn't know who I was at the time, so he wouldn't talk to me. So I had an intermediary, Mandy Wilson, who was also English because he's English, and more well known in Europe than I am with the English, anyways. With the English, because I used to work for the Irish government, so I'm not really the English aren't really a fan of mine, but she knew him. Her family, her father was MI5 or MI6. I think it was MI5. Anyway, she got in contact with him, and then he was okay with coming on and talking about it. And when I was talking to him off camera on that episode, which is also on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, where Mandy did the interviewing and I just produced it. When I talked to him, I mentioned that code and that I had an idea about it. And he told me, you can't tell anybody about it because I'm writing about it in my book, and I'm going to tell the world of what it means, but I'm digging up the proof to show people. So you can't tell anybody. You have to promise me. And I said, I won't. You know the code. It's yours. You have it now. You and Jim. I'm not going to be like the CIA and try to get it out there ahead of you. I won't do that. And he said, thank you. So it's been like 2 years now, and his book is out. And he just posted about it, and I just shared it a couple weeks ago on my page on Facebook. And then I talked to him on his post and said, bro, we need to have you back on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, have you on the show to talk about it. He said, that's a great idea. And then Mandy hopped on. She sucks. I tagged her. She hopped on and said, already in the works. And he said, yeah, Mandy and I are now talking about it. So they're hammering out a deal to talk about that. You guys need to know about that. Peter mentioned the code that they know about, which is John Patterson's code. And that's part of the binary code. That's why Patterson has a hold of it. And that one is 00110001. And that's a code that you should look up the binary code and see what that means. Some of them, the codes were, and I still can't, I'm still not going to reveal because I don't know what he revealed in his book fully. I do know that he showed, and you can go on my Facebook page and scroll down, and it was like 2 weeks ago now that I talked to him, but I haven't mentioned it on air because I wanted to make sure that I looked at his research. But he is showing the correlation between the Giza Plateau pyramids and there's a time stamp in that binary code that is an activation that he's showing you that is a progression in years by the Orion's belt being so often when it rises and comes over the top of the pyramids. That's why if you look at my book cover, the symbol for this show, Orion Rising, which is my book cover that I designed, it's the pyramids of Giza at nighttime scene, and above that in the sky is the Orion Nebula with the belt of Orion directly above the pyramids, and the pyramids are mirroring as above so below those three stars, the three stars of Orion's belt. Exactly. Okay. And when those coincide, and this is the reason why I called that book Orion Rising, and it's the reason why I called this show Orion Rising, when that arises every so often and comes over and is just above the pyramids, each one of those time periods in time is actually part of the binary code that was given to Jim Penniston. And I'm going to go to my page and tell you exactly who this is, because he's going to hate me that I'm talking about his stuff and I'm not naming him, and I apologize for that. So if I don't do that, he's going to kill me. And then there's Stephen Myers right there, who hates the idea of the Orion correlation, not because of because people talk about the pyramid, the one single pyramid, the large one at the Giza Plateau, and they think that the inside of the pyramid, the windows, the shafts that come out of it are, in fact, have an alignment to Orion. Those actually don't have an alignment to Orion, but there is an alignment, but it's the actual pyramidal complex itself. So hold on here. My page is trying to load, and it's And I may have gone back too far already, but I'm trying to find that out, and I'll tell you because I have the link that's there. But my page is being stupid, and I think I went back too far. So I'll have to search for it here. But in any case, so that's funny that Stephen Myers popped up. Maybe like he popped in and was listening to the show. Here it is. I actually found it. Okay. So it's Gary Osborne, and I apologize to Gary for not remembering his name right then live on air. And if you go, I posted on my page on December 27th, 2024, reposted his post from December 26th, 2024. So if you go to my personal page on Facebook and scroll backwards in time, scroll the screen up so you're going down and find that post, you'll see the Giza Plateau, what he posted there, and you'll see these timelines that are coinciding with the three pyramids of Giza in Egypt, with the big pyramid in the center and the other two, and there's an alignment to the corner of each one of the pyramids that goes directly diagonal. And then he's showing you the timeline that is in our history going back 10,460 years BCE to 2,500 years AD. Okay. So you're looking at a 12,000, 13,000, I think roughly, I'm not looking at that. I think that's what it is. 13,000 year time period going backwards in time and forward in time to, we're in the year 2025 going to 2,500. So almost 500 years in our future. And that this entire binary code that he was giving has definitive dates that they're telling about in history. And he has correlated what some of this means and how he got onto this. And he says literally the Giza diagonal lengths of 21.16 royal cubits divided into 72 sections of 30 royal cubit sections, each length and section presenting 180 years. 72 times 180 equals 12.96 years, 12,960 years. So he figured this out from the binary code and figuring out the binary code. And then he did the math and he started breaking this code and he wrote a book about it. And we're going to have him on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, hopefully before middle of 2025, but it'll be up to Gary. Or you could look up Gary Osborne. If you don't know who he is, you can look his stuff up, look him up. So let me come back here to the chat. I apologize because I ran off and didn't have anything there, right? But yeah, so Peter says, I can't say too much, but John Patterson mentioned my name in his book, and I still don't understand. He said, no way to, it's the beginning of 2025, and then he has some numbers that he's saying 20250019 comma 66 increments 12896489, and then he says messaging being spoken from center of 2025, and it's all right. It's all the code 1010101 2025 increments. And he says, and now he's talking about in the drones in the sky, right? And Chandra says 0011000 or no 00100. That's one of the codes. That's not the John Patterson code. But that's one of the codes. If you look up from what you had said there, that's another one of them. So Chandra, you know a little bit. Maybe you and I should talk about this. If you're just firing that code off, then you know a little bit more than I didn't know that you knew anything about Patterson or possibly Gary Osborne and the codes that they got from Rendlesham Forest. That code was really long, and but they're onto it. And there's a reason for that. A reason why I'm talking about this, because of what Ra's talking about. They're talking right now about clearing out space that they're working in, but you're going to see them start talking a little bit more about energy and codes in this session. But I wanted to get onto this because we just had a galactic alignment and we have another one that's coming up. So you need to look at into this ideology and the reason for that. Steve, welcome. And the reason for that is John Patterson's stuff, and John Patterson mentioning Peter Coyle in his book. So you might want to look at John Patterson's book, and you might want to look at Gary Osborne's book, because both of those correlate and coincide with the year of 2025 and the year of 2026 and moving forward up to 2050. And this binary codes that some people are getting, especially Jim Peniston back in Rendlesham Forest, and Gary Osborne has been working on this code. And I've talked to him behind the scenes when we had him on Ancient Aliens Worldwide twice. I think we had him on twice. We had him on at least once. We may have had him on twice. Maybe that's my memory of us having him this time. But he swore me to secrecy. And Peter wasn't talking about it either, about what we knew about the binary codes, until he was able to look into and break the code further. And there, if you go to my Facebook page, like I said, and go back to December 26th or 27th, on my page, by scrolling down, you'll see the image and a link to Gary Osborne's page that he posted the day before. And then you can read the conversation that he and I had on that link, where I'm working with my staff, working with his staff to set up a time to interview him on Ancient Aliens Worldwide Live, and I'll be producing that. I'm not exactly sure when that will be, but it will be on Orion Rising, and we will be producing that. And Gary is already agreed with me. Yes, let's hammer this out. He said that when I talked to him on the 26th of December. He said, let's hammer this out. And I immediately got Mandy Wilson involved, and she is the curator and who runs Ancient Aliens Worldwide, that group, for me. And she is working out, hammering out, as I'm knocking into things, hammering out the details to have us produce him and have him on to talk about what that binary code, now that he's ready to go public with it, and indeed has gone public with it on the day after Christmas. He went public with it, with his findings, and that's going to be what we're going to be talking to him about. So you should look up John Patterson, you should look up Gary Osborne, and you should look up those binary codes. And it looks like Chandra knows a little bit about them, because she was just talking about one of the other alternate codes, not the one that Peter was actually talking about here, but another code. So let me put up Peter's code one more time, and then Chandra, I'll put up your code as well that you were just talking about, which was, I think I want to talk to you about that at some point and find out what you know. Here's where Peter was mentioning it, and I'll read it to those of you listening on the MP3 file, right? It's 00110001, okay? So you could look into that, and then let me find Chandra, where she mentioned another, and I know that binary code as well, so I'll want to talk to you about that off camera, I think, at some point. Let me find where you said that. Here it is. And then she said the binary code 0011001000, right? Or 100. So 0011001000. That's another one of the sequence of codes that John talked about and that Gary talked about. There's 7 of those. And Peter was just talking about the most famous one. And then you just talked about that one, which I don't know how many of, I know Peter knows all of them. And I don't know, Chandra, what you know. So I would love to talk to you to find out if, unless you were just guessing just now at that code, you actually hit onto one of the other codes. But the one that Jim Peniston got was many digits long, hundreds of digits long. There was a lot of messages in there, one of which hasn't been revealed yet that I know of, but I'm going to tell you about it anyways. Because Peter knows this, because he and I have talked about it. And I know that what's his name? I can't think of his name. The investigator, Gary Heseltine, who was the military investigator, who was Scotland Yard, but before that he was in the military for England, who investigated Rendlesham Forest, who we've also had on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, and I produced that as well, talking to him. They were both, all of these people were on Ancient Aliens, the television series, by the way. And we had Gary on. His episode was going to air, episode 1 of season 10, I think it was, or season 12 for Ancient Aliens. So we had him on live for an hour talking about his investigation. And when the hour was over was when the TV series went live here in the United States for that season. And there was an hour for the TV series talking about the very thing that we were talking about on the live show. So we coordinated it to go live and have that end when the show hit the United States live. And so we told people, now we're done with the show. Tune in to Ancient Aliens on History Channel in the United States. And it's going live here, or whatever time zone it airs for you going forward. And so it was 3 hours later when I got it here in California. But we did that on purpose to promote the show, and Gary Hasseltine and his investigation. So the one of the binary codes that I'm going to mention, and that's why I was wondering if Chandra knew, because it's not that one, but it's more similar to the other Patterson code, is the one that referred to High Brazil. Those of you in England know it as High Brazil, and that they were saying, the aliens, they were saying the location of their base was this location. And when they broke the code and found out the geosynchronous code for the longitude and latitude, it actually went and took them exactly to where the Celts said High Brazil was, and the Vikings said High Brazil was, which is in fact, we believe, what everybody now calls Atlantis. And they said that was their base, and that was where they were sending out drones. Oddly, that Cassie right now says, I heard the drones were watching and observing the plasma balls. And yes, they were. We'll get to that in a second. This is what Peter was referring to when Peter was alluding to it a minute ago. So you're right to think that, Cassie, and where we're going with this. And that their drones were sent from the base on High Brazil, but High Brazil is now underwater. Okay. And that's why they left, was because Atlantis sank. But they came back and gave that code to Jim Peniston. Okay. And now we have John Patterson, who knows about some of these codes. And that's what Peter is talking about, because Peter also writes these codes and talks about predictions and prophecy. And John Patterson mentioned Peter in his book. I have not read the book, so I don't know what he said. Probably Peter probably does, but I don't know. Okay. So some of the people have been observing, getting back to what Cassie said. Let me put her up on the screen right here. Right. So I heard too, same thing Cassie heard, that the drones were watching and observing the plasma balls and possibly protecting them. Over here in the United States, over Jersey, that's what the indication is at this point. But we don't know if the plasma balls are in fact what they used to call the Foo Fighters, that the Germans were figuring out back in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago now, because it was 1938. 36 to 38, so almost a 100-year anniversary. Whether our government or the governments around the world are starting to mess with that, or if there's some other indication of what's going on, because some people are trying to say that it's the aliens, and if it is aliens, this place is under quarantine, so it's not. That means it's a false flag alien invasion that the deep state's trying to roll out, because they're losing control of the planet, because 68 countries now have gotten rid of the progressive communist people in charge of their governments. Canada just forced Justin Trudeau to step down, and they have elections coming up. So let's hope the Canadian people vote more centrist and get rid of the communists that are trying to take control and start taking back their country. Because there's a movement that's going across the world where the people of the planet, are starting to be beyond a political party. Thank the gods that you guys are not being stuck in this religion of evil anymore, are now saying, no, we're throwing you out of office because you're turning us into something we don't want, and you're taking away all of our rights and trying to poison us and poison our food and stop us from growing food. So you guys are voting them out in countries, and a few countries have overthrown their governments. Iceland started that during COVID. They didn't put up with COVID over there, and they overthrew that, right? So yeah, so the Foo Fighters plus Foo Fighters are a badass band. Yes, they are. That's funny, Cassie. I agree with you. Okay, so the binary codes were also talking about a time period in. This is why I'm bringing this up now, right? They were talking about a time period that we have correlated to the now. I was just talking about this the other day. If you guys aren't aware of it, and I did my calculations wrong, and I apologize, and I don't remember who I told that to, and I didn't get a chance to tell you. So I don't remember if it was Brooke or somebody that I was talking to, and I said, maybe it might have been Cassie. I don't remember who I was speaking to, and I said I was talking about the could have been Ray. I don't even know if she's here. I'm talking about the 2,000 year anniversary of after Jesus's death, and I was talking about when we've done the research, not just me, but many people, and I have the dictionary, but it's holding up my camera right now. The Bible dictionary, the best scholars on the earth researching the time period of when Jesus was supposed to have been born. A lot of people don't know the year or the date. And the best that we can come up with, according to all scholars, that they agree on the earth was he was born in the year 4 BC. So he died at 33 years of age. So that would make it, and I was saying 33. So 33 minus 4 is actually 29. And I made the mistake of saying 27 the other day when I was talking to somebody. So whoever that was that I was speaking to, I apologize. I got the date wrong. But the 2,000 year anniversary of Jesus's death is going to be April of 2029 by the calendar, the current calendar that we're using now. Okay. So, but that would suggest it might have even been Stephanie, because her and I were talking about the calendar and how it might be off. But I was part of a think tank when I was in college where we were trying to calculate the time, because I had the theory, and many other people did, that if we calculated the time wrong, because a lot of people said the Hebrews say that we're on the wrong timeline and the time is wrong, and that we're way off. And a lot of people will look at that and say that we might be off by a couple of hundred years from where we're supposed to be. Like right now may not be 2025. It may be more like 2228 or 2225. Okay. So that's a possibility. So I did the math with a couple of my friends and said, let's take a look at, I keep bumping things over here with my arm. Let's take a look at, one of the theories is, and it's sound, that if there's a big ship and it's sailing on a course and you don't have the strength or the muscle to move a ship off course, but if you change the direction of that course by a little teeny bit, the longer you go out on a timeline, the further off course that ship's going to be. So I said, what if we applied that to time and say, what if people have calculated the time wrong for the timeline that we're currently on? And what would be the outcome if it were just something very, very small? So we kept reducing the time, and we said if they were off in the calculations by 1 minute, over the course of 2,000 years, we could be off by 100 years by now, and possibly more. So if they're trying to calculate something like the orbit around the sun, and they're not accurate and they're off by 10, 15 minutes, that can cause us in a 2,000 year time period to be off by 500 years when you do the math. Okay. So okay, so Cassie said we talked about it. Okay, so was you the one that I said 2027? I was wrong. It's 2029. But that's by our current timeline. And then when I talked to Stephanie the other day, 2 days ago, she said, but some say our timeline's way off. And I said, well, the scary thing is we're changing the timeline, right? And so some of this binary code is talking about those events. And this is why I'm talking about all of this right now. Some of this binary code is talking about the flux in this temporal war, or the flux in time. And if you guys are aware of these Mandela effects that are going on around the earth, that's the time changing. The timelines are changing because we're shifting things back as we're tilting the earth back upright so that it's going to be upright instead of being off kilter, instead of being crooked. And oddly, as the planet is moving back upright, the moon is moving away from the earth and having less effect on the earth at the exact same rate of speed. And science now says they've figured out that what's going to happen to us if the moon moves far enough away to where it's no longer pulling our tides. And they said, well, weirdly, it's coinciding with while the planet is moving back up to dead center of its wobble, it's going away. And if it moves back up to dead center, we won't need the moon, because all of a sudden it's going to change the face of the earth, and we won't need the moon to pull our tides anymore, because the earth will actually be in an orbit that is geosynchronous, that it's supposed to be in, and the moon won't need to be here. And it's coinciding. The moon's moving away from the earth exactly at the same rate of speed as the earth is going back up and fixing itself. So we won't need the. Why is that important? Because if and when, I should say when, not if, we get Gary Osborne on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, you might want to tune in to what he has found in those binary codes. And you should read Patterson's book to find out what he's uncovered as well. So I do know that part of the code pointed to High Brazil, or the location of Atlantis and the ocean, and stated that that is where their base was, and that they've been observing the people here for a very long time, and that they came back to deliver a message, and Jim Penniston got that message, and now Gary Osborne has that message, and Patterson has part of that message, and other people have been getting the binary code, and they've been translating this binary code, which is ones and zeros and ones, which is a basic code that we use in computers. DOS, that runs your computer, that runs your Windows program, that runs whatever your smartphone is, whatever computer you use, it starts with binary code, ones and zeros and ones. I learned how to write that code when I was 16 years old, before there was personal computers for people to work on at home. I was working on the Commodore 64 3 years before that was sold to the public. I was working on that, writing code. Okay, so writing ones and zeros and ones, and then when we got a hold of DOS, we were able to at least then use words, and the words would be translated by DOS to the binary code to run the computer computations. And that was before, that goes back to the 80s, before there was a Windows. Okay, so this was before they even had that technology. And then once that technology came, it's all been just plug and play since then, by creating algorithms and computer programs, and now what you guys know as apps, and what you guys now know as AI. Okay, so the binary code has been pointing to events that are coming up all the way up to 2500, and it's possible that our timeline currently at 2025 is actually off, and the year might be closer to 2500 than anyone knows. And just by those of us who calculated timelines using the Jesus character, because that's an event that goes almost 2,000 years ago, to where we're pretty definitive as to the date, and other events in history that were pretty definitive dates, and then calculate, looking at those, extrapolating out, calculating those. This is some of the work that I was doing in college, guys, that I'm revealing to you now, and extrapolating out to try and figure out why it is that the Hebrews claim that we were so far off, because they were saying like we're in the year 8,000 or something crazy. And then looking at the Mayans and the Incan calendar, and their big round and little round, we were trying to figure out if we were off in a lot, because our internal clock runs on 25 hours. But this planet is 24 hours. So was there a time when the planet moved faster than it's moving now, and it slowed down by a whole hour? And where are those calculations, and when did the calculations get calculated, and when did that happen? These are things that we were working on back in the early mid 80s, 84, 85, when we didn't have supercomputers to do this. So we had to do all the math. And we found that if we miscalculated for just 2,000 years alone by 15 minutes, that could be as much as 250 years. If you look at 15 minutes every day times 365 times 2,000, that's a lot of time. Just the 364 and a quarter days, the way it is now, every 4 years we have to have a leap year and add an extra day, because that calculation becomes one whole day. So 25% of one whole 24-hour time period every 4 years means we have to add an entire day onto our calendar to stay in time with the orbit of the Earth that's currently going on. So what if that was off by even more than that in the past, and we're unaware of that now? We're aware that 364 and a quarter days is what we calculate now. And we say there's 365 days in a year, which means we have to add or subtract time. And then we have leap year, which is every 4. And it used to be every 7. And I don't know what happened to the timeline when that shifted. But when I was a kid, it was every 7 years, not every 4 years. And now it's every 4 years. So something changed in the timeline to make it every 4 years from every 7 years when I was younger. And I think that that's where things are going back. So I think as time goes on, you guys are going to have the memory of now all of a sudden, instead of every leap year being every 4 years, it's going to be every 3 years. Then it's going to be every 2 years. Then it's going to be every year, every other year, or every year. And then there's not going to be any leap year because we're going to go back to the spin that we were supposed to be on. And some of you won't even remember that. It'll just sound crazy to you when people like me are talking about leap year being every 7 years, because now I sound crazy when I tell people that it used to be every 7 years in the world, and now it's every 4. Okay. So Steve said, let me go back because you guys are saying a lot and I'm not reading it. So let me go back and see what you guys are talking about here. Chandra says, I've been interested in the latitudes. Well, the latitude lines, the longitude lines, those are also meaning something. If you look at the one of those, the latitude or longitude, it depends on what language you speak, English or American English. The latitude or longitude of the Giza pyramids, one of those coincides with the speed of light in meters per second. Okay. So that was built on that longitude on purpose. I think it's the longitude. It could be the latitude. I don't remember which, but it's the exact mathematical equation that is the speed of light in meters per second. So the people who built the pyramids, whether they were Egyptians or aliens or whatever, giants, whatever, they knew that and put that on there. Why? So I said, what is the other axis then? What's the pitch and yaw? What are these mathematical equations and what do they coincide with? Do they coincide with constellations or what? And they're like, we don't know yet. Well, I think that that's part of the code. And this is why I'm very interested in Patterson and Osborne and what they have to say about these binary codes, because there's some correlation there, right? Yeah, Peter said, I was given that code for a reason, being a vessel. And so, yeah, right. So there's a reason for that, right? So let's see. He said, we started speaking in 2016 on the 6th, 2016, roughly. Facebook went live and 0021896, and you've been a friend. You've been a friend forever, Leonard. Yes, I'm aware of that, right? And it's another. He says, I love you as a brother and as a Celt, right? So yeah. So I didn't see that before until I just got up there. So Steve said, I got the impression. Steve said, I got the impression that they were from space. People were getting sick after these drones flew over the houses, but there's a possibility, Steve, that the drones are not, and they're trying to say that, and when because of, okay, first of all, this planet is in a quarantine. Aliens can't fly here. Okay, if they're here and they're aliens, then there are certain aliens who can fly here. And then that would suggest that they're not hostile, because no hostile aliens can come here. They already did. And this place is under quarantine, and there are a group of people that are keeping the solar system from having any alien contact until we fix this place. This may sound crazy to you, and you might go bullshit, okay? But this is the actual truth. If you're a person who does investigation into alien, you know that there's a galactic council, okay? If you know that there's a council of planets up there, then you know that this place is in a quarantine, it's locked down, and there's no way that somebody can get by them and come here, okay? There are aliens that live here. That'll freak you out, or you won't want to believe that, okay? So the drones are not from outer space. And I tell you this because I've been given images, videos where people are claiming to have shot one down or one crashed, and they're working on it. And I have literally been authenticating photographs, videos and the like professionally for more than 35 years. Okay. And when I looked at that, it was completely fake. There's one where these guys are standing there with this red one where they got the hood off, right? And there's all these electronics in there, and they're wearing yellow, what's supposed to be hazmat suits, yellow hazmat suits. Meanwhile, they have a caution tape less than 6 feet away from the drone, and there's like 15 people standing there filming the entire thing. There's no military personnel from any government or law enforcement from anybody in the entire planet there. There's only 2 guys standing there, one of which takes off his glove and sets it on top of the unit. And he's taking the glove off because he can't do what he's trying to do with his glove on. So he takes the glove off and puts it on the supposed alien spaceship so that he can touch things with his raw hand now. And he's supposed to be wearing an environmental suit. And meanwhile, people are standing less than 6 feet away, dressed like me, holding up their cell phones, which are electronic communication devices, which would be disrupted by this thing if it was from outer space. And even if it wasn't, they're disrupting this thing with their electronic communication, and they wouldn't be allowed to be there less than 6 feet away filming something with their cell phones if this was, in fact, something from outer space. The entire area would be locked down. The airspace above it would be locked down, and people would be pushed back miles. They would be pushed back so far that they would not be able to, with any telephoto lens, be able to hold up any camera and zoom in on this device. Okay, so that was fake, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is real! Look at this! They got an aircraft. It was a spaceship from space, and they must have got there before the authorities." And the authorities allowed that video to be posted on every platform and stay out there for you to watch to this day. You don't think that all of that would be scrubbed instantly the second somebody tried to go live with that? And you don't think the government has the ability to scrub that information? They got it out there before they can do it. And then it's on TikTok, and they're not going to erase it. Okay. And that's children who have no idea what's going on in real life with the way things really go with governments. I used to work for a government. Okay. The way things really go. That would be so locked down, you would never even know it happened. Okay. The fact that Americans are trying to fly drones to look at the drones that are looking at things, and the government is coming after them to stop them from doing that, should tell you something, and that they're not telling anybody what's there. So if one crashed, there is no way in hell that anyone is going to be able to go and look at these things. They're not from outer space. Okay. And if they're trying to tell you that they are, it's because there is a fake false flag alien invasion that the deep state has had in operation to do since the early 90s around the world. And they've even bragged about it behind closed doors to people. You could listen to Dr. Stephen Greer, who just did two interviews in the last 2 weeks, or in the last 3 weeks, because of all these drone sightings, where he's talking about it. Everybody's talking about Project Bluebeam, which is fake, made up, and doesn't exist. And there is no Project Bluebeam in any governmental system. Okay. No, it's Project Bluebeam. There's no such thing. That was made up by somebody as disinformation. It's not real. It's not a thing. There is no designation. There is none of that. No one that is in the know, in the true deep states, in the secret space program or otherwise, knows anything about Project Bluebeam being any event. And those people's job is to know what's going on as insiders with these people that are compartmentalized into this knowledge that is being leaked out to the rest of the world. And everyone's talking about these things. They're just not true. So those drones are drones that are being flown by the governments over your peoples. And it's very possible that they're being flown by the deep state to make you think, what is that? I don't know. I'm afraid, because with everything that's going on, they're losing their power and they're desperate. And the only thing they have in their arsenal now, because they can't nuke the planet, because they were going to try and do that before in the 1990s, and our coalitions rendered every nuclear weapon on this planet inert and inactive, and it's taken them from 1994 until now to get nuclear weapons again. That's why you never heard about it. I don't know how old you are, but that's the reason that you never heard about them talking about nuclear weapons until just 2 years ago, because they didn't have any. And they were trying to pretend that they still had, and they just didn't talk about it. So nobody talked about aliens or no one talked about nuclear weapons. There's been no nuclear tests and no nuclear detonations on this planet for almost 30 years. It's not because people signed a peace treaty. Okay. People are rushing to try and get nuclear weapons again on this earth because they didn't have any. since 1994. Okay. And they didn't tell the world that because every government didn't know if the other government had nuclear weapons or not, and they were all afraid. So they were trying to do whatever they could do by pretending they still had them and making brand new ones. Okay. So my point of this is they don't have anything left going on, and they're losing their power. So they've gotten down to, we need to crush all governments now. And that was their plan. The false flag alien invasion was alien spacecrafts would all of a sudden appear all over everywhere and scare everybody and start murdering humans in every country and killing military personnel in a supposed war. And after enough people were scared to death that the world was coming to an end and this was an extinction event by these aliens who were going to take us over, like they tried in the movie Independence Day and a few other movies. They're coming to eat us. They're coming to get us and enslave us and take us over and kill us all off. Then all of a sudden, these other spacecraft would show up and start killing the aliens and make the aliens leave. And then guess what? Then they would come out on television and say, it's a good thing we secretly had all of these advanced weapons and technologies that we were able to roll out to defend the planet. But now we have made contact with this hostile alien race, and we need to come together as one people to defend ourselves against this outside invading force. And we need to no longer have independent nations and come together as one whole planet under a one whole governmental system that we just happen to have already rolling out for you, where we're in charge. And we will protect everybody with all of this cool technology that we didn't let you know we have. And we can, that's a Hegelian dialectic, and that's a plan that they've had that I've known about since 1994. Okay. And you can look into that. Dr. Stephen Greer knew about it before I did, and I didn't know about it until I heard him say it. Okay. But there's other people that have corroborated that. Not just from one guy. It's been corroborated for that. So I would wager that 99% of these craft are not alien in origin. They are, in fact, being done by the deep state. And then some of your government officials, 90% of your government officials have no idea what they are because they're not in the loop of what's going on. Okay. You need to realize that because this place is in a lockdown and it's secure, aliens can't just fly in here. Okay. So, yeah, well, be careful with that. Peter's talking about the reason when he met them, you're talking about Eisenhower, when he met them. Don't tell his granddaughter that, because she gets really upset when people start saying that her grandfather met these aliens and talked to these aliens, because she claims that he said he never did any of that. But I mean, I'm kind of with you in that respect, where I don't trust her as much as everybody else does when it comes to this stuff, right? And I know you know her, Peter, but she would get mad at you for saying that that you think that her grandfather talked to those aliens and met those aliens, bro, right? And you probably know that already because you talk to her more than I don't talk to her very often. We've never actually met, but we are friends on Facebook, right? And you're talking about Valiant Thor. Yeah, I've watched the CIA videos on Valiant Thor right up to the point where they were killing him, trying to anyway. It's the same as Errol. They tried to capture him just the same, but he's a drone. They're drones. Okay, so those gray aliens, Valiant Thor and Errol, and some of you never heard of Valiant Thor, and some of you probably never heard of Errol, but they were not. They were more drone-like than we are. Arrow was definitely a drone. Valiant Thor, I think, was too, but don't quote me on that because he was having respiratory problems, and I remember seeing that video. So it might be that he wasn't a drone; that he might have been one of the Greys that were actually had a soul in there. But most of the Greys don't have souls in them; they're actually drones, being just like you fly a drone in the air. They're drone. Errol referred to hers as at the time in 1947 in Roswell, she referred to it as a doll-like body because that was the only reference that the humans had at the time. But it was a drone, and that she would occupy it from a computer terminal somewhere else, and work it like a drone, like we would do working a remote control with a drone or a computer controlling a drone. Only it was bipedal. It was a gray alien. And then it did the communications. I did 25 episodes on this show about that. You can go back in time and look them up. They're all there in my archives on Facebook. They used to be on YouTube, but I got deplatformed from YouTube and they deleted those. So they're not on YouTube. But you can go on Facebook and watch them there. They're all still up there. And I think they're still on my podcast on the MP3 podcast around the world. I think they're still there where you can watch them there and see them there, or listen to them there and hear me talking about and playing the computer program stuff from the information that came from, what's her name? I can't think of her name right now. Peter could tell you her name. I forget her name. The nurse that did the communication telepathy with Errol. That the military and the CIA had hired. She was a nurse at Roswell in that military base, and she was able to make contact. So they had her sit in, and they would give her information, ask questions, and she would write everything down. Okay, I did 25 episodes breaking that down and showing you who they were. Right. So Chandra said that's who contacted me. Said his name was Valiant Thor. Chandra, we're gonna have a conversation. With you, me, and Peter at the very least. Right? So, yeah. And then Peter said, and he's talking about McElroy. He's talking about her. I think you're talking about her, Peter. Let me see what you're saying. The recreation, now people are talking and my chat's moving. The recreation of the world, such Project Bluebeam, they gave me the year in the violin. I think he's talking to his phone and it's not translating his Irish properly. For the radio broadcast, Project Bluebeam is 2025, the beginning of the life wake up. And that's the aim that everyone into this life and all cold everything to say on TV or radio back in the day came true. Or you're talking about you now. The stuff that you've said, yes, agreed, Peter. Everything that you've said, but Chandra said that's who contacted me. And then he said, so she talks to me all the time. So yeah, I just said Law's right. Laura, you're talking about Laura Eisenhower. I speak the truth. That's why I'm detected. I'm proud to be one of the first wanderers, 1971, and. Whether, some of us that did come through, because I was in 67, came through. There was not many of us prior to that. We started coming through in waves for this lifetime, for this time period. I was born in 67, and I haven't met very many wanderers older than me, which is weird, right? Because I wouldn't think that I was one of the first, but Peter was born in 71, and he's been telling me for most of the time I've known him in this life that we were very early on as people that were coming through for this activation. But then again, I never met anybody until the internet, besides myself, that was a wanderer. So I don't doubt what Peter says, right? One of the first few that came through, and everybody else has come since then. So if you look at the timeline, people say that's just, I don't know about that, bro. In 1981, there was 2.7 billion people on this earth. Today, in 2025, there's 8 billion people on the earth. Okay? So if you go 20 years prior to that, we had just about 2 billion people on the planet the year that I was born. And now we have 8 billion. Okay? So the planet population has gotten huge in the last 45 years, last 50 years, huge comparatively. Okay, so the binary codes, this year is an activation year. It's a year 9, right? I just posted about that A lot of people are talking about that. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 is 9. Okay. This is a 9 year, so it's a masculine year. And not only is it a masculine year and a Kundalini year, not a Kunda buffer year, but it's a God hex boson year, 9. Okay. Then next year is 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6. That's 10. So that's 1, right? So it's a 9 year, and then we go into a feminine year, which is also the beginning. So this is the end, everything, and the beginning, the Alpha and the Omega, like what was told to Moses when he went up to talk to the burning bush. I am the Alpha and the Omega. Who shall I say sent me? I am sent you. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. That's 9. 9 is everything and nothing. 9 is all and then 0. So 9 is everything and nothing, the beginning and the end, or the end of the beginning if you go 9, 0. So we're in the years that fluctuate like that. And this is a 9, and then going to the 0 to the 10, 1 plus 0. So at the end of the year in 2026, or the end of the year in 2025, we go at 0 point, and then we start over with the 1 and 0 to make a 10. Okay, so that's where we're at now. Masculine, feminine. All years do that depending on whether they're odd or even. But this is a 9 year, and then we go to the 10. Okay, so this is an activation year, and we're moving through a lot of activations here just in January, and you're going to see a lot more of that. And Ra talked about that in several instances. And if I ever shut up long enough and play some of the Law of One, you'll see him kind of talking about that today. But I wanted to go down this road because of the current events that are going on. So I'm kind of glad. But yeah, Chandra, we're going to have to, yeah. And she said, yes, 9, hermit year. Right. So we're going to have to talk off camera to where we can actually talk, right? To talk about what Valiant Thor said to you. And that binary code that you got, because that was very interesting, because you just threw up a binary code that I know that Patterson knows about. I don't know if that code you were just making it up off the top of your head, or if you were wondering that was what Peter was talking about, or you know that binary code and that's why you said, wait, this code? And I was like, no, but that's a similar code. I don't know if you know what it means, but that's a similar code. That's 1 digit off. It's actually 1/1000th of a digit off if you do the math. Because instead of being 00110001, it's 00100100, right? So it's 1/1000th of a digit off from the same code, but the only way that you can get to that number is exponentially to the next digit is 1/1000th of a digit. So now if you're adding another 0, a decimal place or a 0, do you see how that happens? You're adding another 0, and that's where you got the 1 moving from 3 zeros to 2 zeros behind it. You're moving it one place, 1 digit up, 1/1000th of a digit up. So yeah, so we got to figure that out. So I'd love to talk to you about that. It's a code that I hear 2 or 3 other times this week. I could have gotten it wrong. No, I'm telling you, but okay. Well, if you got it wrong, you got it wrong in a weird synchronicity way, because that's a code that repeats. So if that code repeats, it's going to be 1/1000th. You're going to change the digit. That's why the code that Peter was talking about has 0011 00011, and then you said 0011 0011 001100. That's a digit off, right? Do you see what I'm saying? That's 1/1000th or 2/2000ths of a mathematical digit off. So it's a repetitive. It's like the Enigma of 24, the Fibonacci sequence repeats after 24 integers. And that's the Enigma of 24. And if you look at 3, 6, and 9, 3, 6, 9, 12, 12 and 12 is 24. 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness in one full day. So the day repeats every 24 hours. That's the Enigma of 24. Okay. but it also repeats harmonically every 24 digits. It also repeats mathematically every 24 digits. I don't have the image. I could probably pull it up. I don't know if I have it still on my phone, but what's his name? Edward, I can't think of his last name, who is also a knight. I'm a knight, but I was knighted by the Holy Roman Catholic See from Rome in the Knights of Columbus. He was knighted by the Portuguese order of knights, but it's a different order, and I forget what they were called. He's just a different order. We're both Catholic knights, and he did several mathematical. He's a genius. Did several mathematical equations, and he was actually trying to physically, mathematically prove empirically that there is a God. And he started going down the road of a bunch of weird mathematical equations, and he discovered that 24. There was an enigma that science is not sure of, and they're like, "What is this enigma of 24?" And I'm looking up the reel that I made from what he wrote. I took his image, and I made a meme out of it, a reel out of it, and I posted it a few years ago. And I'm going to put it up on the screen, or I'm going to hold it up to the camera so you can see it. But I don't have the image downloaded. I could probably look it up faster if I did it that way. But I'll put it up on the screen for those of you who have the visuals to see it. But you can look him up and online. Maybe I should look it up because then I can tell you his name. Let me look it up instead of looking up the meme. Let me look up his actual photo here, okay? And I'll show you that. And why is that important? Because all of these binary codes that people have been getting refer to all of this. Mathematical equations in the universe. Here it is right here. Okay, so it's on my phone, but no, let me unplug my phone so I can pull it up there and you guys can see it maybe. I don't know if I'll get that to I don't think it's going to focus on my phone here at all because it's too bright. Yeah, it's not going to. That sucks. I won't be able to pull it up for you guys to see. But the guy's name is, what is his name? It's Robert Edward Grant. You can look him up. Robert Edward Grant. You can look him up and look up his math. Or I could send that to you if you want me to send it to you so you can look at it. So the mathematical equation, that one shows that he does the math, which is a sacred geometry, where he does the harmonic ratio and everything else, and that he shows you that everything repeats and it coincides with everything. Like, okay, he has, for one of his equations, he has math, or he has, math, well, pi squared by pi, so pi over pi divided by E squared by E, so energy, a constant energy in math equation divided by energy, so pi divided by energy as a constant equals 2.4, 24, right? And there's other ones here that he does where I couldn't even describe it to you, but then he was talking about the motion, 360 degrees minus p times 360 equals 2.4. That's the radius of one pi diameter radius is 57.296, and 57.296 equals 2.4, or times 2.4 equals 137.51. And that coincides with the ratio of harmonics and vibration recycling the Fibonacci sequence at 24 integers. And I don't know if you know math, you don't understand that. And that's just two of the equations. Three of the equations equaling pi, and so that one, and I can't even tell you the words for that one, but there's several. He's got 14 equations here that, and he shows you visually the sacred geometry and does the math for it. That's just one of his mathematical equations. So you should look up him. Again, his name is Robert Edward Grant, and look up his math, because I have two nephews, one of which I believe is going to work for Skunkworks or NASA currently. The other one is currently in college, and I showed him that image that I'm telling you about, the Enigma of 24, and he spent 6 months trying to do the math. and is literally, his IQ is probably, I don't know where it is, it's at least 160, and he's doing crazy math in right now in college, and he'll probably, if he wants to, he'll go to work for NASA. His brother is already doing that. If he's not working for NASA, he's definitely working for Skunk Works, because he's not talking about what he's doing, and he already knows that he's not going to be able to. Okay, so he's going to work for the deep state that I refused to go to work for when they wanted me to recruit me. When I was his age, I said, no, thank you. And I burned all of my notes, and I stopped doing any work for them. He, on the other hand, being self-serving, wants to know all of that stuff, and he's going there. His younger brother probably won't, but just showing him that math, I said to my brother, here, show this to your son. And then I talked to him about a month later. I said, what did he think of that? He says, he's still trying to do the math. He's still doing the math. I said, Dad, I mean, he can do it. It'll take a while, but all you're going to do is prove it. All he's going to do is prove that Robert is right. He and I both have the same middle name. So does my brother. We all have Edward as the middle name. So that's a family name. So we're not related, but I think we are related. I haven't talked to Robert to find out. But having the Edward middle name is a European thing that there's not a lot of us that did that. And so I wanted to find out if that was a name that he was just given, or if all the men in his family had that name. Okay. So yeah, so there's a lot there. Robert Edward Grant is great. Chandra, you know about Robert, don't you? Yeah, he's brilliant. I watched him talk at the Vatican when he was giving his I wasn't there, but I watched it on TV. Where I say TV, but it was online. I watched the broadcast that he was sending out, that he recorded, where he was in the Vatican speaking before the council, and telling them what his findings were when he was mathematically proving that God does exist, and a few other things. I don't know if you saw those things that he posted. But if you go to his site on whatever platform, he's got those videos up for people to look at, and all his images, which I wish I could get my phone to focus for you guys. I wasn't thinking ahead of time. I could have downloaded the photos and put them on the screen for you. But yeah, I didn't know that you were even anywhere near into this kind of stuff. Chandra, we'll have to have a conversation. Honestly, I mean that. I'm not just saying that. I want to talk to you about some of this stuff, because I want to know what you know, if you're already talking about that, right? The other Stephanie, if she were here, she hasn't been here because she works on Fridays now, so she hasn't been here for a long time. She would also be chiming in right now and talking about Robert, about Grant, because of the stuff that she knows about him as well. But I didn't know that you knew anything about that, and binary code. So you've seen that binary code a couple of times. We need to talk off camera. We'll have to set a time in the next day or two and have a conversation. Seriously, on like Messenger or something, where we can communicate and talk to each other, not typing, because that takes too long, where we can actually speak to one another. I would be interested to know what you know of that kind of stuff. So you guys look forward to that in the future with Gary Osborne, and I will be putting it on Orion Rising. So I'll be broadcasting it probably everywhere I broadcast this show on Friday night, so that you guys will be able to see that, because I'll be producing it. So I'll probably put it on Orion Rising, plus on YouTube on my channel, and on Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook, live in those three places. And then I'll put it on my MP3 broadcast, so you'll be able to hear what Gary says, but you won't be able to see any visuals if you're listening on the MP3 broadcast. You'll have to watch the MP4 broadcast, which I will put up on YouTube during the live, but I may post it on Spreaker, and I don't know if I know that they allow it, like Anchor FM, which is owned by Spreaker. They allow the MP4 video, so I may post it there for those of you around the world who pick up that podcast. And I don't know if Podbean allows MP4. If they do, I'll post both on those platforms, so you have the audio, and then you can watch so you have the MP3 version and the MP4 version. I'll put that in the title, so you'll know that one is an MP4 version of the video, And that way you guys can see any visuals that he's going to have, because he's going to be showing a lot of visuals when we have him on the air. And I don't know when that's going to be, but he said he wanted to. So that's in the works. And I hope that he doesn't back out, or we find an agreement somewhere where we can get him on the air to get his information out there to people, not just in the UFO community, but in the spiritual community as well. And then the binary codes and the translation of those, what he will reveal. But I do know that I've known since probably, I don't know, I think it was about 2005, the codes that what I mentioned that came out of that was High Brazil or Atlantis. And that they said that it was a drone, that they had sent a drone, but they'd been watching us on this earth and studying the people of earth, and that they're returning because of what Peter was talking about going forward in 2025 into 2026, moving forward to 2050 in these increments of activation years, moving into 2030, 2032, 34, 36, 40, and the like, moving forward on this earth up to 2050. Okay. So we're revealing that kind of stuff. That's why I'm talking about this on here today instead of just doing the law of one. So those of you who are turning in to just hear the law of one, you probably get mad. And he's not even talking about the law of one. I'm out of here. That means that this isn't for you guys, because otherwise you would stay around and hear what I'm saying. So it looks like there's only like 4 people or 5 people in here right now anyways, right? So most of the people have already left because I've been talking about this instead of their cherished. Why is he not talking about the law of one? Who the hell does he think he is? Well, I happen to be a representative of the Orion Council of Light down here on Earth, part of the Orion Coalition down here on Earth, the Orion Coalition of Light, people that have come here to this planet to help you to change things back to the way they were in the timeline that was corrupted by what you know as the Anunnaki when they got here trying to take over this world, along with a bunch of other worlds, 22 other worlds in this sector of the Milky Way galaxy. And we've come here to restore order, and they ran from us like scared little puppy dogs, yipping with their tail between their legs when we got here. But the damage that they've done to this place got this place stuck, and now we're fixing it, okay? And we've been hiding and not telling anybody because they were killing us lifetime after lifetime over and over. And so we were hiding, especially in this lifetime, because we're now revealing we're not the only ones. There are many, many, many billions of people on this earth currently who came here to help. And they're starting to reveal themselves to you on this earth. Okay. So for those of you who are here currently that are still here listening to my words and didn't run away because you expected to hear Ra, and how dare he not talk about Ra, because who is he and what is that? Ra is from the same coalition, from the same council that I'm from. Okay, we came from Orion. So when Ra was channeling, Ra was the Orion Council of Light channeling to Carla. I'm part of that Council of Light. Okay, so when I tell you that, for those of you who are just here to hear Ra and me talk about Ra, and you're getting annoyed, I am Ra. We are Ra. Okay? And we've been here trying to help restore the balance that was taken from you. We're not just that group. There are many other groups that are here, coalitions that are here. There are 68% of the population of this earth is not from this earth. Jacqueline, there's another one. Look at Jacqueline Taylor shows up right on cue when we're talking about the reveal and what's going on in the world. Jacqueline, you should be on the show, right? So Jacqueline Taylor speaking about a wanderer that's showing up. Other people are starting to pop in now. Share this out, guys, right? Fiona, welcome. Jacqueline, I was just revealing some of the information about the different coalitions that are here, that have come to help these people. I remember when I first met Jacqueline, what was that, 8 years ago, 10 years ago? She just told that story when we were on her live in December, where I would say things like I'm saying now, and she's like, we can say that stuff out loud? We can say that? We can talk like that? And I'm like, it's time. Peter's been pushing us for a lot longer than that. Jacqueline, you know that. Trying to tell us it's been time, or it's time for us to start telling people what's going on. So that you're going to hear more and more people revealing the same kind of information that I'm revealing to you right now around the world, that are literally going to start going. I'm part of a group of people that have come here to help rearrange the information on this planet and give back the free will of these people and give you back the balance of what's supposed to be going here. People get caught in this, there is a war between good and evil attitude, and they think that there's some fight and you have to defeat evil. This is an ecosystem, and this is the way that the creator created this ecosystem, and it's this way throughout all the universes except for the ones that they've changed variants. But for the most part, third dimensional reality illusion is this way. This is the dynamic, the yin and the yang, the Vesica Pisces, the balance of good and evil, vying for control of your mind and the people and your ego and conscience. And the same thing playing out in the physical. So there's no war going on between good and evil, where evil is going to be defeated ultimately because God's going to come down with his wrath in his hand and evil would be wiped from the face of the earth. That's not what that means. You're thinking physicality in a physical war, and you think God's going to come down with angels and destroy the earth and make the new heaven by killing all evil people. It's not what's going to happen. But it's similar to that in a spiritual sense. That's what's going to happen. Okay, but there's not going to be this destructive war where a bunch of people are going to die, and then there's no bus being driven by Jesus or anybody else that's going to show up and pluck a billion people, 144,000 out of 8 billion, pluck a bunch of people out of here, and everybody else is going to be left behind. That's not what's going to happen either. That's all lies. Dismiss that. It's all lies. Okay. So you have to realize that, okay? But this is an ecosystem, and you're the one who's supposed to be battling your darkness and looking within you and doing the shadow work and stopping, not listening to your ego and not being in self-serving and being in service to others. Then you can graduate on that side, or being as evil as possible and murdering as many people as you can so that you can graduate on that side. But choosing a side is what you're supposed to do here, and then sticking to that and learning how to ascend on that side is what you're supposed to be doing. And that's been taken from you by these people that in my book, which I'm going to run a commercial for right now because I haven't done a commercial for my book at all since I've been talking, right? I know, Jacqueline. It's good to see you, Jacqueline. You should be here more often. So I'm going to go ahead and run a commercial, pay the bills. Let me run a commercial for my book. Let me find where it's at here. I'm going to run a commercial for my book here so you guys can see that, right? Wait a minute. That's a picture. That's not the commercial. So let me do that real quick, and then you guys can talk in the chat, and I'll look back, and I'll be back right in a second, right? So,
what is the reality about reality? Returning to the old ways. It is a comprehensive book about what is really going on here on this planet. It talks about the true spirituality that the controllers who think they own this planet have been keeping from you for thousands of years. It explains to you the knowledge that you gain from the universe itself when you live the way the prophets of the world throughout time told us how to live. Eat right, meditate, take care of yourself, treat others right. All the things they originally told us to do, but the controllers have removed from right in front of our eyes. The way to ascend to heaven. The reality about reality. Returning to the old ways. On sale worldwide, online now.
Okay, so I'm reading the chat. You guys caught me reading the chat. I was reading the chat all intently right there, and the camera came back on. Okay, so first of all, if you're out there in the world, buy my book. Read my book. You'll get some of this information that I'm giving you now. So you're going to see a lot of people around the world start revealing themselves to you, these different coalitions that have come down here to help. And there's individual peoples that are not part of any coalition who came here, are all born legally, descended into form, born in a body just like everybody else. 68% of the population currently on this earth are not indigenous to this earth. 68%. So there's more of us on this earth than there are of people who are indigenous to this planet. Why? Because we're overwhelming the system so we can put it back in order. We can fix it to where that you guys have the ability to graduate when you're supposed to graduate again by restoring that information. The problem is that Everything that you have around you has been designed to keep you distracted and not know that this is what you have in front of you to do. That you're supposed to learn these things. They're taking it from you by distracting you and keeping you distracted over and over and over again to learn nothing, do nothing, and not upgrade yourself or graduate in any way. Okay. So you don't see it because they take it from you. You don't see it. It's right in front of your eyes, but you don't see it because they distract you with everything. All these applications, all this AI devices, all of our cell phones, television programming, they have programming upon programming upon programming. And all of that is designed so that you never look around. You never get in tune with yourself. You never get in tune with nature. You never even fathom any of that. They're trying to discourage you from having any kind of loving relationship. They're trying to discourage you from any kind of spiritual thought. They're trying to keep you away from everything that will in any way enhance and expand your consciousness. But they can't delete all of us because it's against the rules of engagement in this place by the way the Creator set it up. It was set up on purpose so that they couldn't just take control, lock it down, and turn everybody into slaves. But they can distract you, and then you have the freedom of choice. So if you choose to be distracted by everything, then you'll never graduate. So if you're tired of being here and you're like, get this feeling like I've been here a very, very long time and I want to go home, the only way you're getting out of here is to help fix this place and fix yourself, more importantly. And the only way you're going to do that is to stop living in the flesh, to stop living in the I need power and money and fame and clicks and likes. You need to start looking outside of the physical into the spiritual. That's the only place you're ever going to find happiness. Every prophet and every religion throughout the entire existence of this world has been telling you that over and over and over. But they've been corrupted into religions, and the religions themselves have been corrupted into semantical things of put your ass in the seats and pay us a tithing so that I can walk around with $1 million robe on, with $1 million mitre hat on, and throw water at you and fling poo at you like a monkey, and have you thinking that that's going to get you into heaven, and teaching you that the way to heaven is no longer through Jesus or any prophet, but by putting your butt in a seat so that we can tell you and read you the same scrolls over and over and over. The Christians got that from the Hebrews. We just read you these old scrolls over and over and over and not translate them to you properly and tell you what they actually mean, and give you superficially what they mean only, superficially meaning what they only mean in the flesh. And that is what all the councils were about from the year 100 to the year 1100 or 1200 on this world, was to solidify that knowledge into only physicality, non-spiritual ideology throughout the world. And that's what my book is about. It's about telling you that there's this group of people that have been planning this and having this happen to you on this planet for thousands of years now, where they're not allowing you to learn this information that you're supposed to be able to have access to. And it's right there in front of you. You can do it, but you have to do the work yourself. If you don't do the work yourself, then you can't figure that stuff out, right? So did Tina pop in? And am I not seeing something? Oh, there's Tina. Hi. Yeah. See, didn't have my glasses on. So Chandra's asking a question, and I apologize if there were some of you asking questions and I didn't see it because I stopped reading the chat for a minute there. So I just happened to focus. I was scrolling up, and the first one I saw, Chandra said, do you think that the deja vu is precognition or remembering and repeated past lives? Both. When you start getting deja vu is normal to your expansion of your consciousness. Those of you who are psychic, you and Tina both, and half the people that are here in the audience right now do psychic work. Almost every one of you that I'm aware of does psychic work. But the progression of waking up spiritually is the first place that you're self-aware is when you become a human. You become self-aware after you become a human after you become self-aware. Then you're veiled, so you don't know anything. You don't know who you are. You don't know who God is. You don't know any of that. And it takes you 7 to 10 lifetimes to then normally 7 to 10 lifetimes currently with the current life expectancy of the current human. Because there was a time when people used to live for 1,000 years 800 years to 1,000 years, you would only need one lifetime because you were living for 800 to 1,000 years. So it takes about 800 to 1,000 years of life in this illusion and to advance. One of the first things is you start getting deja vus, a lot of them. I tell people, and we've been teaching this for a long time, and I'm not saying we like I'm saying we as in me and many other people, teach you that if you're on a life path and you start having deja vus, a lot of them, that means you're on the right life path. And so because of what's happening to you, when you're on the right path, you start moving up in vibration to 4D and 5D, and that's outside of time. Time having a future, a present, and a past, present, future, separation, like we do here, only occurs on the third dimension. At first, second, and third, but they don't perceive it in the first and second dimension as much as we do in the third dimension. But trees, blades of grass, animals, they're first and second dimensional creatures. So they don't perceive time like we do. To perceive time means that you have to be self-aware. So they don't perceive time like we do. We perceive time because we're self-aware. So the time perception is only in third dimension, past, present, and future. Okay. So as you start getting deja vus, it's because you're moving closer to fourth density. More importantly, dimension is a physical place. Density is the place where your soul resides. That's where you actually reside. You don't reside inside this head, in this physical body. This is an avatar, like a drone, and you're plugged into it. Okay. And you're controlling it. But this place is designed to make you think this is real. It's not happening. It just thinks it's happening. Its design is to please you. Its design is to distract you. It's a test for baby souls. You're supposed to overcome this test, and that's the hardest thing that you're going to do. From this point on, it's pretty easy compared to what you go through here. So the creator decided to make the hardest part the first part. So as you're getting deja vus, it means you're moving closer to the perception of now, of no time. When you're outside of, if you channel or spirit walk or astral project, you're in a place where time doesn't exist. You can instantaneously move thousands of miles and be there and remote view someone. You can instantaneously communicate with people on the other side or in another galaxy. Why is that? How is that possible that you can do that? Because you're not in the bodily constraints of this physical place. You're outside of time. So when you start, first thing you start getting is a lot of deja vus. If you can keep your life on that path, whatever your life shifts in your daily routines of things that are happening, to where you have a lot of deja vus happening over and over, even in dreams and things like that, then you're on the right path, because you're starting to perceive things without time. And we teach this when we start teaching you how to be aware of being in a dream without ruining the dream or exiting the dream state. And that's that's a lot of shamanistic training that you usually get from Native Americans. But depending on whether you have Druid or Wiccan background, European, older religion than Christianity or Hebrewism, involved in even some of the African religions that are older religions that were still teaching that, Egyptian as well, that are Greek, Roman, that are older than that are 5,000 years old or more. You get that kind of training still in the modern time. So then you start to learn the perception. Your perception determines your reality. And the deja vu is the first step, if you don't have any training, to that realization that I am something more. So first you're like, I think, therefore I am. Then you're a human. And then your next perception is, I think that there is maybe a higher purpose or a higher being, and maybe I am something that's immortal, and that I'm not this physical body, and that I exist outside of this physical body. If this physical body dies, I continue. That's when you start getting deja vus, because it's expanding your consciousness. Then you start being able to perceive being outside of your body. The next step is being able to do that. Psychics already start doing that with the communication. So if you are prone to doing psychic readings, you're already aware of that, and that's where you're going. So you're aware of the Akashic record or the halls of Amente or the library or whatever you know it as, where the information is in the meeting place where you meet with your guides and your higher self and things like that. That's 5D thinking now. But some of the deja vus that you're getting, let me go down that point, because I'm sure you guys are asking questions and all, but I want to get to that because some of them are bleed over from other timelines, and some of them are perception of the future as well. Because when you're outside of time and you start perceiving everything as the now, there is no time, so everything's happening now. So the past, present, and future is now merged, and you're able to see timelines even down here. From that perspective, you'll start having a memory, precognitive, having a memory of something, events that haven't happened yet. Okay. Now you guys are talking about life paths, right? I'm a 33 life path. They don't even tell you those anymore. They've eradicated the 11, the 22, and the 33. If you go into any site and calculate your life path number, if you're a 22, they're going to tell you you're a 4. If you're a 33, they're going to tell you you're a 6. If you're a 20, if you're an 11, they're going to tell you you're a 2. They don't tell you ascended master anymore because they don't want you to have the perception in your brain, the understanding of ascended master. Does that mean something higher than this place? No. Forget about that. You're just in this place and you have a life path number of that. Do you see what they're doing? So all websites now, when you go there, and you calculate your number, none of them tell you about, in fact, that I can find in the last few years, tell you any more about a life path number 33, 22, or 11 and what those mean. They do reduce it to the lowest digit using Pythagorean theorem, and they just go 3 and 3 means 6. You have a life path number of 6, and then they give you all a bunch of mundane shit that has to do with your personal archetype in the physical body. So you have to be aware of that kind of stuff. Okay, so as you're expanding your consciousness and you start perceiving these things, then sometimes then you can figure out the difference between whether it's a bleed over, because as we're fixing the timelines here, because the timeline has been messed up when the earth was flipped over on its axis. That's the fall of the human race when man fell. That's why we went from living 1,000 years to living for 20 or 30 years. And now we're up to the 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, depending on the country that you're in. Life expectancy is getting larger and bigger. Oh, we're eating better food. No, we're not. We're eating worse food now than we have, especially in the United States these days. They're poisoning us in this country. So if you're in somewhere where they've banned most of our food, good for you. We're trying to do that in this country now. We're focusing on that here and fixing this country because the food is killing the people and keeping their vibration low. So your expansion of your consciousness is starting to pull you in that direction, but there is some of the timeline was changed by these people that people know as the Anunnaki, that the timeline was changed here. And now our planet is off kilter because it flipped over on its axis and it's off kilter. It's not straight up and down where it's supposed to be. And there's a bunch of us that are here that are fixing the ley lines, the energy lines of this earth, and we're moving it back. And I'm going to announce this now. Peter knows this. Cassie knows this. Some of you know this, and I'm going to announce it now. If you know where the chakras are on the planet, all the planet's chakras, like, for instance, Rick knows. He works at Uluru there in Australia. And those of you who are Australian know what I'm talking about. Uluru is the sacral chakra of the earth. Okay. And then you have the third eye chakra and the heart chakra. Is it? The heart chakra is in where Stonehenge is. Newgrange to the east of west of Stonehenge is where the third eye chakra currently is. The third eye chakra is going to move between now and 2050. But I haven't really talked to people to find out the exact date that it's going to move. It's going to move back to the Himalayas, from what I can gather, back to the Himalayan mountains coming up. The third eye chakra is the only chakra that's not permanent on this earth that moves on this planet. All other chakras are dedicated. I am living less than 200 miles, about 120 miles from the red ray root chakra, which is Mount Shasta here in the state of California. Okay, that's where I'm living currently. I'm just south of that by maybe 120 miles. I haven't looked it up, but it's not very far away from me. I'm living in Sacramento. You can look that up on the map. I'm just outside of Sacramento, 5 miles outside of downtown Sacramento, the state capital for California, Mount Shasta, Uluru. So they're all over the planet. And one of the the third eye chakra moves, and it moved. I don't know how many years ago now. Peter, you might remember that, what year that was that it moved. It moved to Newgrange, there in the west of England. So you have two chakras, the heart and the third eye, that are on that island currently, and it's going to move again as we shift the planet and we fix the ley lines of the planet. The third eye is going to relax, and it's right now it's tucked in by the heart to protect itself, and it's going to move and shift, and some people are aware of that. Newgrange is Ireland. Is that what it is? Okay, so it is west, right? So it's not actually on the island of England. It's in Ireland. I was unaware of that. I apologize. Newgrange is in Ireland. Newgrange is shifting under 36 December 2025, and Stonehenge is shifting 3 days before. Okay, see, so all right. So Peter is saying that he was saying that he says 36th of December. So I think you're saying the 26th, and it's coming through translating your Irish wrong to English there. So we're looking at this year in December, that we're going to have the chakra move. Okay, so things are shifting, and it's because we're fixing this, and the timelines shift. Chandra, getting back to that. Those are the Mandela effects that are happening around the world. And if you have memory of some of them, it's because you're supposed to. Some people don't perceive the time shifts at all when they happen. And they go, that's not the thing. That's never happened. I've never heard of that before. But many millions of people have these larger shifts. They have memory, dual memory, one of an older memory and then one of a new memory of the same event that has changed places. Like, for instance, I love to use a few. For example, Disney, if you're older than the age of 35, you might remember that Tinkerbell used to fly up to the screen, come right up to the camera and go boink, and all the fairy dust would spark like she's hitting you with the fairy dust in the nose would spark, and then she would fly away from the screen and then go over and fly over the Disney the castle, and there would be that arc that she would leave behind her as she was flying. That no longer exists in this timeline, and you can't find it anywhere on any video, and Disney says that never happened. We never did that. There are literally millions of people on this earth that have that memory of a time back in the 70s, 80s, and into the early 90s where that happened on their opening credits to movies, videos, and their television show. And then one day it was not there anymore. The timeline shifted, and it's no longer, that never happened. No one created that. Okay? There's other ones. They call it the Mandela effect because some people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison. And in this timeline, Nelson Mandela did not die in prison. He got out of prison. And if you remember Nelson Mandela not dying in prison and getting out of prison, you then may or may not remember the name Stephen Biko. Most people don't even remember the name Stephen Biko. Stephen Biko was the guy that was in charge of that movement who got Epstein. He supposedly hung himself in the prison and died. And then Nelson Mandela took over. When he got out of prison, he ended up becoming the president of South Africa, freeing the people and canceling apartheid, ending apartheid. But some people have the memory of Nelson Mandela dying, and there was never a Stephen Biko, and they don't know how apartheid was ended. And then there's other people that remember Nelson Mandela surviving, not dying, and Stephen Biko dying, and Nelson Mandela becoming the president of South Africa. And then there's still other people who remember Nelson Mandela going to prison and getting out of prison, but no Stephen Biko ever existing. I have the memory of all three of those events. I remember Stephen Biko. And most people don't know who that name is when you say that. They just know Nelson Mandela. Okay. And then there's people that go, I thought he was dead. For instance, I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. I was knighted on the day that Pope John Paul II, Papa Juan Pablo, died. I was knighted right after they announced his death. And we were excited about that, sad that he died, but excited to be the only knights who were knighted on the day that he died, because when he became canonized as a saint some point in the future, because we knew he would, that we would be knighted on the day of his feast, because the day of his feast would be and celebrated would be the day he died. So up until 6 months ago, he hadn't been canonized yet. And 6 months ago, I found out, or 5 months ago, I found out he was canonized in 2017. And I never heard about that. And I would have heard about that had he been made a saint in 2017, because that's not something that a person who, first of all, is Catholic, second of all, minister, third of all, knighted by the Roman Catholic Church on the day of the man's death, who brought the Knights of Columbus back into the church as an official order, was knighted on the day that he died. Those of us who were knighted on that day were waiting, watching the calendar and the vote to find out when John Paul II was going to be canonized, and he wasn't canonized. And then one day he had been canonized 8 years ago. Okay. So, or whatever that is, 2024, 3210987. Yeah, I was right. 7 years ago, he had been canonized. I would have remembered that 7 years ago. I haven't been absent. Okay, so there was a timeline shift, and I don't know when that one occurred. But when I discovered it was about like 5 or 6 months ago. When I discovered that time shift changed somewhere along the line to where it went backwards to that far back. And my memory, I don't know when that occurred, when the shift changed. I'm sure there's going to be people that know it instantly and could tell me when it happened. Okay, so those are some of the deja vus that you'll run into, right? Tina says, I remember seeing that. You're talking about the Tinkerbell thing, see, right? Well, that's because, Tina, if you have that memory, it's because you are, in fact, a wanderer, which means that this is not the first time you've gone through the third dimensional existence. That means you came from a higher plane, from a different place, and you came here with a group of people and lowered your vibration and got put into Tina's body as a baby, like any other soul gets inserted, and you came through here, but you got veiled and mind wiped like everybody else, because that's what you have to happen if you're coming down here legally. Then you hope that you wake up at some point and remember that you're not from here, that you're from somewhere else, and you came here to help these people, right? And you're obviously in service to others, or you wouldn't be doing readings for people and trying to help people psychically, okay? So if you have memory of these big events that wanderers only get to know when these timelines shift, because the other people don't have those memories, and they're like, you guys are all tripping. You're remembering it wrong. Those aren't real. You're just remembering it wrong, and you think it's right. Weird that there's people from all over the world, all walks of life, who have never met one another, who have the exact same memory, and it disappeared at the exact same time, and there's a new memory, and they have memory of both. And only a certain group of people on the earth have those memories when they shift. That's because you're supposed to, because you're not locked into this matrix, because you're not from this matrix. You're from a higher plane, and you've come back down here to help people, and you were born legally in a body, and you own this body, but this isn't you going through this for the first time. You're not even in the first life, or second, or third, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth, or seventh, or eighth, or ninth, or 10th. You've already gone through this entire scenario a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and you ended up here to help these people, and that's why you have these memories of these time shifts. And people will try to tell you, it must be CERN. It's the evil government. They're scared shitless. They don't know what's going on, and they wish they could do it. They have no idea. And so they're just like, oh, no, yeah, oh, yeah, that's us, yeah, because we went to the moon too, right? So you have to realize that's why you have those memories. So, Chandra, to get back on your question, I'm sure you guys have already fired about 8 questions at me since then. Some of the deja vus are all of those things that I mentioned to you. Some are because you're on the right track. Some are past life regression memories. Some are future life bleeding into, because you're moving into the now, and you're starting to perceive things as now, so you're getting precognitive things as well. So you just have to realize that and go ahead and let it expand your consciousness anymore. And do you think people's life path numbers have to do with it? Because yours is a 1, which means you're probably, I don't know what, I'd have to do the math. If you're a 1, it just depends. But yes, everything that you design, first of all, you design all of this. None of this is happening to you. All of this is happening for you. So your name, your first name, middle name, last name, every bit of when you were born, the day you were born, the time you were born, the month you were born, including what country you were born in, to what parents that you were born, you design all of that. Okay? It's not just serendipitous, it's a synchronicity that you designed into your life on purpose so that you would become who you are, have the abilities that you have spiritually, psychically, so that you could do the things that you chose to do and learn the things. You decide everything that happens to you in your life, or you leave open randomity to allow things happen to you. But most of the time, everybody programs their life pretty much into this matrix before they get here. And the things that you want to learn in this matrix will give them to you over and over, present them to you in your life until you see them and learn from them the thing that you wanted to learn. Why is it that everybody around me keeps dying? All my friends are dying and everybody keeps dying. It seems like everybody I know is dying because something about the death of someone you care about is a lesson that you wanted to learn. And because you're not getting that lesson, this matrix keeps having people die around you. Okay? And those people were going to die anyways, but you wouldn't have noticed it, or it wouldn't have affected you the way it did, right? You hear about friends that die and you go, well, that sucks. And that's about it. But if you didn't learn that lesson of that loss, every loss is going to be accentuated and you're going to be freaked out about it. Every cat I have dies, every plant I have dies, something like that. You're supposed to learn those lessons and you're not seeing them. So this matrix just keeps giving it to you at every opportunity that it can. Because as you designed it, you told the matrix that you wanted to learn that lesson, and the matrix is trying to give you opportunity to learn that lesson over and over in your lifetime. All lessons are that way. This place is designed by you. You control it. So if you want those things to stop, you have to stop and look and go, what am I supposed to get out of this? Am I not grieving? You got to look at those things. And that's the shadow work that Jung talked about, that you have to look within yourself and say, I have to do this, right? I have to learn this so that it'll stop occurring in my life. And as you go through those life lessons and you learn them, then you realize that your life gets easier because you learn the lessons. And once you learn the lessons for each lifetime, then you have nothing left to learn. And it's just fun and games from that point. So if you get all that learning out as fast as you can in your life gets easier for you, because now it's bonus stuff that you might have programmed, or you don't have anything left to learn. And then all of a sudden you're like, life's a dream, dude. I'm just kicking back and loving life. And you see people like that all the time. You're like, how can they live like that? Because that means that they learned everything that they set down to learn in that lifetime. And now they got nothing to do but party and have fun and eat food and enjoy life, because there's no more strife in their life that they set down to learn for themselves. It's only the good things that are left now. And then the normal things that happen in life. All right, I am going to play raw a little bit right here so you guys don't have just dead air, because it's getting dark here and I got to go and close the blinds in the other room and start turning on lights so my mom's not sitting in the dark. Okay, so I am going to play raw. For those of you who were like, why isn't he playing raw? Now you'll get your way 3 hours in, or however long I've been on the air here, 2 hours in and on the air. Now you can hear some raw. I'll be right back, and then I'll see if you guys had any more questions for me, okay?
Point 4 questioner. Can you tell me what caused the instrument to become in a condition toward unconsciousness during the last 2 meditations prior to this one, to such an extent that we discontinued them? Ra. I am Ra. We can. 72.5 questioner. Would you please tell me that? Ra. I am Ra. The entity which greets this instrument from the Orion group first attempted to cause the mind/body/spirit complex, which you may call spirit, to leave the physical complex of yellow ray in the deluded belief that it was preparing for the RA contact. You are familiar with this tactic and its consequences. The instrument, with no pause, upon feeling this greeting, called for the grounding within the physical complex by requesting that the hand be held. Thus the greatest aim of the Orion entity was not achieved. However, it discovered that those present were not capable of distinguishing between unconsciousness with the mind/body/spirit intact and the trance state in which the mind/body/spirit complex is not present. Therefore, it applied to the fullest extent the greeting which causes the dizziness, and in meditation without protection caused, in this instrument, simple unconsciousness, as in what you would call fainting or vertigo. The Orion entity consequently used this tactic to stop the raw contact from having the opportunity to be accomplished. 72.6 questioner.
Okay, let me stop that, right? Yeah, Peter's talking about where they burned all the history, right? Yeah, he said it all began with the Nazis when they burned all the books, 5,000 years of history. The Vatican did the same thing. Well, it actually started before that when what Julius Caesar burned Alexandria. I was saying Alexander because of Alexandria. When the library at Alexandria, so we're back in the Roman days, they burned all of the history of the world and they took it, and that's what he's talking about, referring to the Vatican stealing it. But then the Germans did the same thing, and they burned all of the history that they could find. They only had the Vatican archives with history. And there's a few countries that have that, the English libraries and the Vatican libraries, where they have the true history of the earth, and then they rewrote stuff. So there's a lot of that went on. I talk about that in my book. If you guys want to take a look at that, that's in there. Just so you know, for those of you who are listening, this is the stuff that I do off air, where I do questions, and I take questions and I give you guys what's going on in the world. And I kind of decided to do it here in this setting today because I'm trying to give those of you around the world the opportunity to hear this and hear the questions. Because if you guys out there on the planet want to start asking questions, I will be getting to that. I do a Zoom call that's off air every Wednesday at 3 p.m. And I'm in there, and I just allow you guys to ask me any questions that you want to ask me about spirituality or what's going on in the world of the universe or whatever. And I give you this information that I have to help you, to guide you, so that you can look within yourself and find your path and start piercing the veil. Because the information that you gain when your ascension is the same, it's universal. So enlightenment is universal. And it only comes from the universe. True enlightenment only comes from the universe. And I'm not the one who made that up. There are other people who said that in history because they knew about it. Okay. But I fixed this life, put it together so that I would be unveiled in this life. And I am completely unveiled. I am not veiled in any way. So I literally, like right now, as I'm talking to you, I am sitting in the Akashic records in the halls of Amente, whatever you want to call it. And I'm literally looking up anything that I want to look up to give to you guys while I'm on the fly. Okay. So I'm existing through this body and talking through this body while I am also there with guides standing around me and access to all the memories of any. I can access anything that I can tell you that would be your information or information about the universe or information about spirituality or whatever. And I do this for people off air in case you want to ask questions or about things that you don't want people to hear about or know about. But I'm also going to start doing it live for people to be able to answer questions. And so I'm starting to do that here in this platform on my Orion Rising show so that I can get that information out to the world for those of you that are listening. And I probably should have announced this at the beginning of the episode, and I'll probably do that next time so that people get that idea instead of having to listen 2 hours and 13 minutes into before they understood what I was doing. Okay, because I am going to start going and doing that live. Cassie also does this when sometimes she's on the Zoom with me, and she's going to be in the future doing her own. She's already starting to do her own calls. They did one last night. Cassie was on there. Some of the calls are right now. We're some of them were just playing in and we're laughing, and we did that on the Zoom call on Wednesday where we just hung out afterwards after a couple hours, and we were all laughing and having a good time and just relaxing in there and communicating. And they did that again the other night for a couple of hours, but we're also having intensive conversations with smaller groups of people, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of us. Sometimes just me one-on-one with people, and Cassie one-on-one with people, and Ray has now done that where she's done it with 3 or 4 people, and sometimes in tandem. And we're starting to do this more and more. Peter, which is another reason why I wanted to talk to you about what's going on. Not that you have to do that, but that I need to make you aware of what we're doing and what we're starting to do and transitioning into. So that's why I said if you guys want to ask questions. And Jacqueline does the same thing. She's still here too, right? So Jacqueline's still here, right? And she's doing this. She does the same thing. And I don't know if you still do Zoom calls, but you were doing that for a long time. Where Jacqueline Taylor, who's in the audience right now, were also doing those things and asking questions. She popped in a couple of times for the one I do on Wednesday, and was talking to the people there too, right? So I don't know if because there's people all over the world that do this, okay? And it was that Francesca. Is that how you say that? Welcome, Francesca. So like I said, if you guys have any questions, let me know, because in this episode tonight, instead of doing a lot about the law of one, I felt that it was time to start revealing that information to you guys out there. So if you have any questions about anything we've been talking about, or any questions about spirituality, type them in the chat and I'll answer them for you. Otherwise, I'll just continue to start telling you the stuff that's going on, right? Jacqueline said, I went shopping for the moment. I think you're talking to somebody else, right? So, okay, Rick, you had a question. Prior, you already asked one. I apologize that I missed it. Please ask it again. Rick had a question, and I didn't see it when I was trying to look through the chat for the question. So, Rick, please retype your question for me. And anybody else that I happen to miss, please retype your question now, because I didn't see it, and I am trying to go back. Oh, well, there it is. Simple question. Rick said, simple question. The 26,000 year cycle of the Earth wobble, is that to do with the movement from true north? Except yes. Okay, Rick. Yeah. If that was another question that you had, no, it is that. Okay. So I found your question, and I apologize to anybody else that had a question. Let me get back on that. Okay. So I mentioned it a little bit when I was talking to Chandra about the deja vu stuff, and was getting on to when I was referring to the timeline shifts and this Mandela effect. Okay, when what you know as the Anunnaki, when the Orion Crusaders got here, and they were trying to enslave this planet by taking control of the matrix here. That's their modus operandi. Okay, when they got here, the way things work in this illusion is that if an invading force comes down, it's where you guys get the story of the vampire knocking at the door. You have to invite the vampire in, or the vampire can't come through the door threshold. That is a metaphor for invading forces. If an invading force comes down in force, all of the people of the invading body that they're invading will realign against them. So even if there's people that own most of the planet that are evil, they'll realign to defend their planet. That's what they're basing their idea on, with that false flag alien invasion narrative that I was talking about an hour ago. Is on that narrative. That's the way it works. So if you want to invade a place and you don't want the entire population of the planet to turn against you, you can't let them know that you're invading them. So what they do is they come up with some story. There's an alien invasion and we're here to defend you. There's these evil people that have enslaved you and we're here to help you. But you have to let us come down to earth. And once you do that, you're letting the vampire come in the door. They get boots on the ground behind the scenes. No one else knows about it. And they've usurped the free will of the people. And then they have access, because in this place, if they come from a higher plane of existence, and this is why that the Orion Crusaders, the Anunnaki, don't just invade in third dimension. They invade in fourth and fifth dimension, so that they have beings that are outside of this space-time continuum of the separation of space-time being past, present, and future being separated the way it is here. Doesn't exist outside of the third dimension. So when they get boots on the ground, that allows them access to this dimension. And then they have people that are outside of time then are capable of coming to Earth and being born in a body, and then they have to have a past. When you get here and you get a separation of time, past, present, and future, that means you have access to that. If you're consciously aware, you can affect things in your past, because you have to have a past here. So when you come down here now, you have access to the past and the future, and you go backwards in time and you change things. That's what they did here, and it caused the planet, and you hear about the Atlanteans messing with the 3, 6, and 9, and the Earth flipped over on its axis because they stopped the Earth from turning, and the mantle, the molten mantle kept flowing around the core, and that shifted the planet, the crust out here that we are. It kept moving when the planet wasn't turning anymore. So if the planet is turning and we're sitting on the planet and it's turning, and that's what's happening to us right now, okay? If the center of the planet stops turning, everything else sloshes and continues to turn. That's what happened, and it causes devastation on the earth when that happens, and that's what caused the flood and caused the fall of the human race. And so the earth itself when they tried to start it up, the spin caused the Earth to then flip over on its axis and then flip back up, and it was wobbling like this back and forth like a top as it's coming to a rest. Well, it came to a rest off kilter like this, okay? And it's off kilter like 11 point. It was just a few years ago, it was 11.5 or 11.7 degrees off of plumb, off of dead center up to the top. And that was what caused the humans to go from living 1,000 years to only living to about 35 years of age. And now we've changed that. And the planet is slowly, as it's wobbling, the wobble is getting slower, but it's also shifting back upright. And just in the last 5 years, it's gone from 11.7 degrees to like 11.3 and 0.5 degrees. So it's literally moved that much very quickly. And that timeline is when we're fixing that, changed the past, changed the timeline, and time changed here. The history of this earth changed here. But the people who are indigenous here never noticed that because they're asleep completely. So their perception is just what's going on. So they have no perception of time shifting. And only those people that were awake enough at that moment remembered it. And that's why there's stories the Romans have and the Greeks have of a time before the moon was here and then the moon is here. And that there was an entire species of people or a village or country in different areas around the earth that were very spiritual, who wrote down that this big disaster happened and there was no moon here around the earth. And then one day it was towed here, moved here, and put into place. And that history is still here for people to find. I researched it and actually found it when I heard that story. Wait, there's history where people were perceiving that. And I've also found where the perception of the destruction. We have the stories of Atlantis. That caused the earth to be off kilter and changed the timeline, and the wobble that we have, right? The wobble that we have now is in you're looking at a 26,000 year. It was actually less ago to that. Well, it was about that when the perception is further back. The perception is, because you're saying 26,000 year cycle of the earth wobble. And that the perception is, by our accounts in history, it goes back 128,000 years. And then there's another perception change at the 77,000 year mark. And there's another perception at the 26,000 year mark. The big round and the little round by the Mayan calendar and the Incan calendar, or the Mayan calendar, is 3,600 and some odd years for the little round, and the big round is double that or triple that. So that one is the 18 to 26,000 year mark that they were talking about. But that has to do with the weird thing, what we call quantum weirdness of our perception of time. As we're fixing that, the perception of when that thing changed is changing. So those people, so you're going to see that. That's just like, if you go back when I was a kid, I'm 57. If you go back when I was a kid at 10 years old, all of the world believed that we were only 3,000 years old, the human race on this earth. When I was a boy, we did not live more than 3,000 years ago. There were no humans. And then by the time I would say I was 8, by the time I was 16, it was, well, we might have been around for 5,000 years. And then by the time I was 18 or 20, it was maybe we've been around for 10,000 years. And then come forward in time to when I was 30, it was, well, humans might have been here 12,000 years ago, but that's it. Now, definitively, humans have been here for about 130,000 years. And some people are saying millions of years. We're finding bodies that are mummified that are millions of years old. We're also finding bodies, if you believe some of the stories, that are entombed, that are millions and millions of years old. And when they open the tomb and disturb it, the person that's in there ages. But then they do testing, and some of them are old. There's a few that are almost 1 trillion years old, that are as old as the planet itself. So it's very possible that humans have been on this earth far, far longer than anyone ever imagined. However, there is a shift that's changing as the timeline is changing, and some people are perceiving it and some people aren't. But the wobble is directly related to when the Orion Crusaders got here and the damage they did to the timeline that we're actually rewriting currently. We're literally fixing the Earth and the energy lines of the Earth and shifting them back to where they were supposed to be so that the crust, the planet itself, can put itself back in alignment so that all of the chakras work the right way and the energy of the planet is back to where it's supposed to be, because this Earth, she doesn't understand what's happened and doesn't understand why she's confused and in pain. So Gaia is, we're fixing that. And in doing so, we're changing the harmonics of this Earth, and we're fixing the people at the same time. And those people who are indigenous here are never going to perceive it once it's fixed. They won't even know that it happened. They'll argue with you if you have memory of anything that I'm talking about now. When everything shifts back and where all of a sudden everything is back to normal and the utopian society begins, which is the beginning of it, what you're seeing right now, and things are changing, they're just going to attribute it to people made changes and we're tired of the evil people being in control and their reign was done and we fixed that. It had nothing to do with a God, and it had nothing to do with any of the people being from another place. And they're just, but that's going to be a small number. That's going to be only the indigenous population. Everyone else, just like me now, is going to say, no, that's not true. There was a difference that you're unaware of that actually happened, which will be the majority of the people that are on the Earth at the time. Okay. But there's going to be those people that are not ready because they're not in any way spiritual, and they're going to be asleep, and they're going to go, you're crazy. You made that shit up. And all you guys who talk about that, there's something wrong in your brain and you don't know what you're talking about. And everybody that's awake that remembers those events and the changes are just going to stop talking to them about it. And they're just going to go about their lives, and they're going to look at one another and they're going to go, that one is sleeping. And you're already probably doing it. Most of you, Rick, I know you're doing it. I know you're doing that. You're already looking at people around you and you're like, wow, they're just asleep and they don't know what's going on. Okay. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Okay. I'm going to look again, but if I'm not staring at the chat and then I don't see the questions, and then I apologize if I missed them. Right. Yeah, Dick Van Dyke's going to be 100 years old. Peter says, and this year, there's only 3 people on the planet, 100 years old people. Dick Van Dyke, Dick Van Dyke is going to be 100 years old this year. I hope he makes it because I'd like to see him have his birthday at 100 years of age, right? So, yeah, if you guys have any questions, fire them at me. You're welcome, Rick. If you guys have any questions, fire them at me, because otherwise I'm looking up the chat to see if you guys had any other questions. I've always said that we have been around for millions of years with the dinosaurs. Yeah, how is it that we knew about the dinosaurs and called them dragons, and we knew about them and we knew what they looked like? People were drawing them, not just the bones. They were drawing what they looked like. How is it that we humans could perceive that if the dinosaurs have been dead for 1 million years or more and we were never here? Because we would only find their bones because they've been in the ground. There's no skin left. So how would we know what they look like to draw them and be so accurate? We find cave drawings, and then when we find them and we use forensics with our computers to figure out what they look like, these people were able to look at the bones. Did they don't say they dug up the bones of something and then realized what it was and drew that. They drew it, and they're showing people interacting with that thing. Oh, well, that was just their imagination. Weird that they were drawing the same mastodons that were actually on this Earth through their imagination, right? That means they had to have seen them. They had to have seen them. So we were here with dinosaurs. We were here a lot longer than we thought we were here, right? And, right, dragons. And we were here. Dragons used to be here. Dragons are a different story. Dragons, a lot of people say that dragons were just dinosaurs, right? Because the dinosaurs were big, so therefore they were dragons. Well, weirdly, all the dragons, European dragons, Asian dragons, they flew. So why would they invent dragons that only fly, some of which are just slithering snakes and others had wings, and yet none of those big mastodons, none of those big dinosaurs that were walking the earth flew or had wings? So how is it that they had this other dinosaur, if it was in fact a dinosaur that doesn't look like any of the dinosaurs that walked, and they claimed that and the face is almost identical, even with the Asian dragons and the European dragons, even though the bodies were different, the faces were almost identical, and neither of those faces are on any dinosaur that we've ever found. So how is it possible that they both, in all countries, drew the same dragon face on that doesn't exist in any animal that we have found for any actual dinosaur that we've ever found on the earth, and all of them flew. And out of all the things, the biggest things that we found bones from that fly are the big pterodactyls, which don't look anything, had a long beak and a point on the back of their head. Okay, so how is that possible? Unless there was these things and we don't have any of their bones. Well, then they didn't exist because there's no empirical evidence. Just because we don't have their bones doesn't mean they didn't exist, doesn't mean that they were not here. Okay, because I know for a fact that dragons exist. They don't exist in this realm right now, but they do coincide with this realm outside of this vibration. Okay, and I know that for a fact. So that'll freak some people out, right? And some people get mad on that. At the same time, my screen just recycled because my Wi-Fi just dipped down. So I apologize. It means I'm saying something. I'll have to get off that topic, right, for a second there. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, so I believe the humans were here and walked with the dinosaurs as well, Penny. I believe that they were, and they've been here for a very long time. So if you guys have any other questions, I'm gonna scroll up and see if I missed anybody's question. Because I don't want to miss anybody's question and have somebody get mad at me and go, you didn't tell my question. I had a question and I was trying to talk to you and you were ignoring me, man. But otherwise, if you have questions, ask them, right? The DNA, I'm going back 30 minutes ago, and Chandra said the DNA change on Ancestry, right? The DNA change on Ancestry.com is my first personal Mandela effect. Yeah, right. Was that you and I that talked about that? Where they changed, where you did your DNA and you looked at it, and then all of a sudden, that once they got it away from the Mormons, right? The Mormons were owned Ancestry.com and 23andMe, and it was bought by Google, I think, or Bill Gates. Either way, the deep state got a hold of that website. Everybody's DNA changed. I haven't looked at mine since then. I know what mine said when I did it 8 years ago, before the Mormons sold it to the deep state. But now that the deep state owns it, now that the swamp owns it, and the oligarchs who control the narrative here, now all of a sudden you have a completely different background in your DNA than you did before. And you're not the first person to tell me that. When I looked at my DNA recently, and all of a sudden I have other races in me I never had before, and they're eradicating. If you didn't have any African DNA, you would probably do now. I bet I do too. They're all of a sudden eradicating any person on this earth that can say they don't have African DNA, because they don't want the DNA that doesn't have African DNA to exist, because we are their enemies. But we're just a representation. The way that works, by the way, let me get on that. The way that works, right? Yeah, that was Chandra when we were talking that said that, right? That was you and her that talked about her and I that talked about that. Okay, so I talked to so many people, I wasn't sure if that was her that I talked to or someone else that I was talking to, but it was her that was doing that. So, because obviously it must have been on a Wednesday, and you were there, Penny, because you know about the conversation. Thank you. So, what was I going to talk about before I looked down and saw that? So, the way things work, as far as the DNA that's on the earth, everyone's like, "Oh no, aliens came down here and seeded us." There's some truth in that lie. It wasn't that somebody came down here and played with our DNA and gave us the DNA from this. Again, when people come here, race of being comes here. When enough of you come here, you have to have a representation in the physical of the spiritual, as above, so below, right? As below, so above, as within, so without. So it's the way the ecosystem works. So when you come down to a planet and you see the races that are on the planet for those of you who are awake, you know where the people are, the souls who are there on the planet occupying those bodies, not necessarily the soul of each individual body. You don't stay in that physical body, but it's a representation on that planet. It's the way the ecosystem works for people who come from a higher plane to know what planet people are from that are there. Because some people will design their lives and want to go to, say, Earth to help out, and they get there and go, oh, no, I can't be down here. Those people are really, really bad, and this is going to be really, really hard, and I don't want to be a part of this ecosystem. So they see who's down here in the physical or who's down here in the spiritual, and sometimes they'll go, I don't like the dynamic of those people because the last time I had interaction with them, it was really bad, and I don't want to go down there. So when those of us got here to help, there was a representation of our DNA that cropped up on this planet. Science has now proven that the people who have the Rh negative factor, specifically type O negative on this Earth, has only been here for 10,000 years by the perception of time here. They can't find anybody before that on this Earth anywhere, so they don't know how that DNA got here. So that plays into the narrative that they don't want you to believe. First of all, there are no aliens. But then when you go, well, where did this DNA come from? Science says it's only been here 10,000 years. All of a sudden, they believe in aliens. The same people who will tell you there is no God and there is no aliens will all of a sudden go, well, it's possible that it was an alien species that came down here and joined the people on Earth. But that doesn't mean that only people who have type O negative or type O DNA or the Rh negative factor, that all of those people on the Earth are from another place, because that doesn't matter. It's in the gene pool now, and people can be born in any body that they come in at and they design. So it's there for anyone. I just happen to have come in with this DNA on purpose when I designed this life, so that I would make sure that everything had to be perfect for me so that I could come in unveiled. So because where I came from, before I came here, I was a Viking Celt. I came down here as a Viking Celt in this life. It's also the reason why my name was Leonard Edward O'Neill, Leo, Leo, and I was born in on the 13-month calendar, the true calendar of this Earth. I am a Leo, right? And then when I went to go get baptized, not telling anybody that, I went to go get baptized. I chose Gabriel to get baptized, and the nun said that I needed to be baptized Leo because he was the patron saint of the Word of God, the spoken word. She said that. I wasn't doing this then. This is back in 2002, 2004, 2002. So I wasn't doing this yet. I wasn't revealing myself to the world, but somehow Moira McPherson, the nun that I was working with at the time, knew something about me. So she must have been far more awake than she pretended to be, which was what I was doing at that time as well. She said, no, he needs to be Leo. So when I got baptized, I was baptized with both Gabriel and Leo. Because Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, and I had an older brother who died at 6 months old of pneumonia, whose name was Gabriel. So I chose Gabriel to be baptized, and she said, we're adding Leo, and told the priest. She told me that, you need Leo. And I was like, well, I want Gabriel. And she added it. So I was baptized with both. She was adamant about that. And the day I was baptized, I got both those names. So my Christian name is Leonard Edward Gabriel Leo O'Neill because of that. And now I understand why she would, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time. And when she did it, I was like, there is a reason for that. And then it became more apparent when I thought about when I asked her, what is Leo? And she told me, and I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. But how do you know about that? So you have to realize that too. So there's representation down here, but that doesn't mean that somebody who's Japanese is not, of that race, or somebody that has a AB positive or a B positive DNA, blood type, doesn't mean that they're not from a different place. It just means that whatever you designed for you to be, whatever body you designed for yourself to be in this life, is what you designed yourself to be in the pain body, to have the experience that you're having, good or bad. So if you have horrible arthritis, I do. If you have autoimmune issues, if you have all these things that are going on in your life, and you're just like, oh my God, this is just a hideous life. You chose this. This doesn't randomly happen. People think that until they realize when you die and you go to the place of healing and then the place of reflecting, you're designing your life. But then when you come back in and you get born in your next life, you get veiled again, so you don't remember that. Why is that? It's designed that way as an ecosystem so that you can have this organic experience that you're having down here. And you have to have it without knowing that you're an immortal soul until you learn that. Because there was a time before the veiling, and God created this, the creator of the universe created this, and then realized his creation was lazy. He gave everybody the ability to be lazy. So the creator went, I'm lazy. I created this and I created them and I gave them free will, but I didn't give them, I didn't mind wipe them. So they all knew who they were, and they were sitting around going, yeah, man, we'll get there, dude. They became surfer dudes. No, it's all cool, man. You're God. I'm God. They're God. We're all God, bruh. So we'll get there, man, when we get there. And nothing was happening fast enough. And so then the creator said, it's got to be this new scenario. Okay, somebody come up with a new scenario. Let's figure this out. So the creator came up with a new scenario of the only way this is going to work is they have to have no memory. And then we have to have something that's going to drive them forward so they don't stay lazy. Chaos was invented. Evil was invented. And then the free choice to choose from what to what. And the creator created that and experimented with that and liked it. Drives people to move faster and then adds an entirely new experience pool, the evil side. So it's doubled the amount of experiences that everyone can have, and then put us all together and gave us free will, and then we're adding to our lives and changing our lives every second of every day. And that's the ecosystem that is the yin and the yang. That is the ecosystem that is the Vesica Pisces. That is this place. There is no right and wrong. There just is experience. Okay? Because your immortal soul isn't affected by what goes on down here. It is, but not to the extent that, you're not going to die from it. But you can be injured, and you would have to have some healing. That happens. That's normal. That's expected. Okay? So I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys out there on the planet listening to me, but that's the long and short of things. I'm going to do a commercial again. Right? Got to pay the bills. Commercial for my book. Coming right up. Wait a minute. I'm in the wrong place for that. Should I do the short one this time? No, I'm going to do the long one again.
What is the reality about reality? Returning to the old ways. It is a comprehensive book about what is really going on here on this planet. It talks about the true spirituality that the controllers who think they own this planet have been keeping from you for thousands of years. It explains to you the knowledge that you gain from the universe itself when you live the way the prophets of the world throughout time told us how to live. Eat right, meditate, take care of yourself, treat others right. All the things they originally told us to do, but the controllers have removed from right in front of our eyes. The way to ascend to heaven. The reality about reality. Returning to the old ways. On sale worldwide online now.
Right, Penny. They want to charge you money for that. I went through that too. Penny said, funny, the doctors won't tell me my blood type. They just say I'm Rh negative. They won't tell you your blood type because they want to charge you money for it. They know it. That's why they know that you're Rh negative. But they're not going to tell you unless you ask them. And then they're like, well, we have to bill your medical for that. And then they'll just go in your records and look it up, but they'll charge your medical $1,000, a couple $1,000 where they'll make money off of you. So if you've been married, I don't know about what state you're in, but in the state of California, you have to get a blood test so they know what your DNA is. They tell you, this is where the lie is. They tell you, well, we're just wanting to make sure that you're not brother and sister, you're not too close. The truth is they want to know your DNA. And there's a reason for it, because if you have the negative Rh negative factor, specifically if you're type O negative, but if you have the Rh negative factor and you're being a female and your husband is not, and he's got the Rh positive, and then they have to make sure they give you a medicine so that your body doesn't try and kill the fetus if you have a child with somebody who's not the Rh negative factor, your body will try to reject the child if it comes with the same DNA that your husband has or the baby daddy. The other way around, if your baby daddy is Rh negative and you get pregnant and you're Rh positive and the child is Rh negative, the fetus will try to kill you, because that DNA is a superior DNA that does not like to mix with the other DNA. Okay, that's why people with the Rh negative factor, especially like type O and type O negative, I'm type O negative. Most of my family's type O negative. We can donate blood to everybody on the face of the earth, but I can only take type O or type O negative blood. But I can give blood to everybody else. Okay, so that's why they actually do that test, not just so many people are traveling the world these days. We just want to make sure you're not related. That's not true. That's not why they're doing it. That's a lie. They're doing it because they're trying to track, and they've been trying to track that DNA since they discovered it, and they're trying to figure out where it came from and who has it, because they know that that is a thing, and they know that people who have the Rh negative factor are spiritually they're more spiritual, and they're more inclined to have higher IQs, and they're more inclined to have many psychic abilities. I know this because when I was 11 years of age, the government came to my school and tested like only 30 of us in the entire school. And I was one of the special kids that got pulled out of class to go and do all these tests, which I still remember to this day. And they were all cognitive tests, reasoning tests, whether or not I had mechanical skills. They were basically physically taking an IQ test without asking the IQ questions, because the IQ questions are questions that are designed just for Ivy League people to test with a higher IQ than all the other people, to make them think they're smarter. And that's been proven. When you take those questions, if you take those questions and you haven't had the Ivy League education, you're not going to test high as someone else who is part of the elites on this earth. And they've proven that, because they took the questions and they rewrote the questions in the context of people who lived in Compton. Okay, so the poor black kids, and they gave them questions that were just as difficult, but they were in terms that they could relate to. And when they tested the poor black kids, they were testing higher on the same rate as geniuses as the other kids. And when they took the other kids who tested as geniuses from the other test and gave them that test, they tested stupid, and they weren't a genius anymore. And it was literally just the context of the questions that they're asking you and the references that you've never learned in there. Like, nobody in the city knows what a woodchuck is. And that was a famous question. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? If you don't live in an area where a woodchuck is, you have no idea what that reference even means. You can't answer that question. How can you answer a question that you have no reference to? Okay, you can't answer that question because you don't instinctively, if you're smart, automatically know what all the animals are on this earth. Okay, that'd be like me. Some people see a cobra and don't even know what it is. Why? They've never seen a cobra in their entire life. I just watched a person on Jeopardy not know what the visual was of a cobra and said rattlesnake, because they never saw the wings of a cobra sitting up looking at somebody before, and they got the question wrong because they obviously had never seen a cobra in their lives. Cobras are not indigenous to the North American continent. Cobras are indigenous to the Middle East. Okay, that's just like a rattlesnake. If you've never been in Arizona, New Mexico, the south of the United States, in the desert region of the United States, you have no idea what a rattlesnake is, and you don't know that out of all the most deadly snakes on the face of the earth, the top 3 out of the top 4 are in the states of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. 3 deadliest snakes on the face of the earth are in that region of the world. I know that because I lived there. And I was like, well, we got a deadly rattlesnake. And somebody said, we have 3 deadly rattlesnakes here. We have 3 of the top 4 deadliest snakes in this area. I was like, what? And I Googled that and I was like, wow. Okay. So if you have never lived here and you live in South America, you don't know what a rattlesnake is. Okay, so you can't test it high, and so my point of all that is, they're not telling you what your blood type is because they don't want you to know it, because they don't want to help you. They want to charge you money for it, and then if you learn it, so if you've ever gotten married, someone knows your blood type, and it's usually on your in your records. Where you got married. If you still know those people, it's in that records because you had to get a blood type test for that. I had forgotten I did that when I got married the first time. I had to get a blood test. I was 22 years old, and I found out then that I was type O negative, and then forgot about it. And then 8 years ago, I'm like, I need to test my blood. You could buy a kit, by the way, Penny. You could buy a kit online that costs you about $25, and you just read it, and you just prick your finger and put blood drops in these 4 little round circles, and then drop this chemical that comes with it in that circle, and then sit there and watch it. And after a few minutes, it'll change, and they have a little chart that you put there, and they'll tell you what your blood type is. And it's actually a legitimate one that you can get that is very accurate. But they'll still say in the hospitals, no, we need to have your blood tested, because they want to charge whoever your medical provider is, they want to charge them like whatever it is that they get, a couple $1,000s that they get for it. But you can look that up. If they already know that you're a RH negative, then that means you don't have any African DNA. So, but I don't know if you're type O or if because you could be A or B or O, and I think AB. You can be almost anything with the negative these days, because the people originally were type O negative that came here, that DNA representation, and they've bred now with a bunch of people, and it's intermingled with a bunch of people in the DNA and changed the DNA pool, so that now there's people from all blood types that are that have the negative factor, which didn't a couple thousand years ago they didn't. And the epicenter of that blood type, by the way, is the west coast of Spain. Is the current west coast of Spain. There's a city there where like 10% of the population is type O negative. In that one city, it's like 85 or 90% of the population of the people there are type O negative. In that region of Spain, and they believe that was the 0 point. The representation happened in that place 10,000 years ago, and has expanded out to the rest of the world since then. Crazily, they don't know exactly where they came from. Okay, so Brooke, welcome, Brooke. Brooke said, "Hello again, family." Right? She said, "Our babies all get tested at birth. I'm O neg. Brooke is O negative, and because of this, I had to get a vax so that my body would." Didn't attack the babies if they were not, right? And yeah, I'm no monkey, right? Yeah. So that was actually a Reese. The Reese monkey is the where that comes from. The RH factor was in the Reese monkey. That was another question in that same category on Jeopardy just last night or the night before. I think it was last night. There was a broadcast here in the United States, and I was laughing about it. And it was like the Reese monkey, and they were talking about that. So you have to get over here. It's not a vaccination over here. It's a medication, a pill that the women have to take, so that either the child doesn't kill them or they don't kill the child, because that DNA is superior. It does not want to breed with the other DNAs. Doesn't want to work with it, but it can be the blood donor. It can be the universal donor of blood, type O negative. You're the universal donor. And here's the thing, okay? 10% of the population only is type O negative or RH negative, and literally most of you in this audience currently are RH negative or type O negative. And I talked about this on Wednesday, off air. And people are like, how is that possible? It's because the people, wanderers find each other, okay? And a lot of wanderers in this life came through specifically to end up being in that bloodline to help them wake up faster. So I know more people that are spiritual that are RH negative factor than I do that are not. But that doesn't mean it's exclusive. Like Peter Coyle, if he's still here, I think he's B positive. He can tell you what he is. Right, but I know for a fact that the soul in that body is a wanderer. Okay, I know that for a fact, and I know that he and I have been together in many lifetimes, many off of world before we came here. Okay, we came here together, and we've been in other planets, fought wars together in other planets. Okay, so, but weirdly, they also say that people who are genetically of that gene pool tend to be more expansive and more psychic than any other species, any other race on this earth. And if you look at all the European people, because it's primarily came from Europe, if you look at all the European people that are of that type O and type O negative, you'll find that they were all, and still to this day, even if they're half asleep or even if they're asleep and they're here for the third or fourth time, but they came through in that type of body, you're going to find that they're far more spiritual and they're far more prone to psychic abilities and magic, right? So science has been tracking that, and I know that because they come and look for us. When I was 11, they came, and everybody that was taken out of the classes, and it wasn't because my town was full of only white people, but the ones that were taken out of the classes all seemed to be European in descent. There was nobody from any other race that was taken out of the class. And I didn't know everybody else. I only knew one other person that went through the testing with me. And I found out later when I was 18 that he had joined them because I was here in the state of California still. And I was down here at the military base where there was a air show, and the Blue Angels and the Canadian Snowbirds were there that weekend to do the stuff. And my father and I decided to drive our motorcycles up, go to the military base to watch that. And it was so hot that we took our helmets off, but there was no helmet law in this state yet, but on the military bases, there was already a helmet law, and we had our helmets off, and we got pulled over by the MPs, and they made us put our helmets back on. So when we got away from the MPs, we took them off again. So because of that, we were driving into a hangar where they had all the motorcycles parked, and the cars were in a parking lot, but the motorcycles went in the hangar. And as I was driving in the hangar, one of the airmen who was working there in the military saw me and recognized me. We were friends in school at 11 years of age, and he disappeared, and I didn't see him after that. And he was tested the same time I was. And after that, a few days after I was tested, the military showed up, the Air Force showed up with my father, who they went and got from his job, and brought him there, and went and had somebody get me from my class and take me over to the principal's office, where the principal was now out in the other room, and the military was interviewing me and offering me a job at 11 years of age to become a military officer and join their junior military academy and work for the deep state at 11 years of age. And apparently they did the same thing to him, because when I got off the motorcycle, he came running up to me in a lieutenant's Air Force lieutenant outfit and looked at me and said, "Wow, dude, look at you." I was like, look at you. He says, "You should have said yes. Do you remember when we were tested as kids? You should have said yes." I can't say anything more. Then people saw that he was talking to me, and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing over there? Knock that off. Stop talking to those people. Get back over here." And he was like, "I got to go. You should have said yes." I never saw him again. Okay, so he went to work for the deep state. And he was in the military, and he was 18, and he was a captain then, or a second lieutenant. I don't remember. I think he was a captain almost. I think he was a captain then. No, he was a lieutenant. He was a lieutenant. So he was a lieutenant already. Out of basic training, he was a lieutenant, just like they told me I would be. As soon as I turned 18, I would be fast tracked through basic training, and I'd be a lieutenant. He was a lieutenant, and I was 18 at the time. Okay, so they are tracking that DNA, and then they test you. And if you're a wanderer, and you're not awake, they try to get you to be in service to self and join their team and do this stuff. Okay. Right. So everybody gets tested at birth in Australia. So I think they get tested here too, but they just don't tell people. I believe that everybody gets tested at birth here in the United States too, but because somehow they knew about me. They specifically came and had my name on the roster of someone to come get out of my entire class that I was in. I was the only person taken out of that class to go and do that. And that by the time our recess happened, that Winnebago was no longer on the premises. And I don't know if it showed up other days or not, but nobody else in the school ever talked about being tested. But I was out there with like 30 some odd kids, and we were lined up, and we all went in there, and there were cubicles set up in this Winnebago all the way around. And you went from cubicle to cubicle to cubicle to cubicle to cubicle, and you had a person assigned to you in a lab coat and a clipboard, and you were only to talk to them, but not out loud. You were to whisper in their ear, and they would talk to your ear so no one else heard. And you sat down and put on headphones, and there was something to do in that cubicle that you were in, and you followed the instructions in your ears, and it told you what to do, and then you did the best you could, and the person stood literally behind you with a clipboard writing stuff down. And then when you finished, you took off the headset and you moved to the next cubicle. and sat down and put on the headset and did the same thing. You did it all the way around, and there was many different things that they had us doing that were in there that I know were testing your cognitive abilities, your motor functions, your brain functions, your perception, your everything, your motor skills, all of that. It was physical, visual, hearing. It was all this different things, different tasks that you had to do. How well did you know how to do these things? How well did you follow instructions? How quickly could you figure out puzzles? All of that stuff, right? And then they started recruiting. Okay, so how did they identify those people? They knew about it somehow. I was 11 years old, and they had identified me as a candidate for to go at 11 years old of age to be recruited to go into the deep state of the United States of America. Okay, and I said no. I'm still pissed about how much fluoride is in our water. We're trying to ban it here in this country. Donald Trump becomes the president on the 20th, and he's trying to get Robert Kennedy Jr. to be in charge of the health of America. And one of the things that they're wanting to do is to ban fluoride from the United States. Already banned in the UK. I don't think, if Peter's still here, I don't think it's in the UK anymore. I think they've already banned. I know it's in the UK, but I don't know about Ireland. But yeah, so yeah, you guys got to change that, right? So fluoride in our water making us blocked. You have to just filter it out. You can filter it out. We have filters over here that you can filter it out. For the last 2 weeks, I have had only had fluoride-free water and toothpaste, and I can feel the third eye breaking open. Yes, I get toothpaste that has no fluoride, and I have a filter that I put in a pitcher that filters things, but it also filters the fluoride out. So that I don't have any fluoride in my water, and I don't have any fluoride in my toothpaste. Because of that, I also don't use aluminum. I use aluminum-free deodorant as well, so that the aluminum doesn't collect in my brain. My mother has problems with that now because of everybody her age does, and everybody in America is going to have Alzheimer's if they don't change the way they eat and the things that they have in their body. So you just got to vote the people out of office that are in office and change the laws. Your people will eventually get tired of it and do it. Everyone else is doing it around the world now. So eventually Australia will do the same thing. When Canada is called for Justin Trudeau to step down, you guys are usually more advanced than Canada, because Canada is the weakest individuals on the face of the earth. No offense to you Canadians. Some of you aren't that, but we laugh at you here, and you hate us Americans because we're so arrogant. But we look at you guys and go, we wouldn't put up with this shit up there. We didn't put up with it here, and we haven't. You guys stand up to those people. So I say congratulations that you forced Justin Trudeau to step down. Now you need to vote with your minds, and you need to vote the progressives out of power, and you need to put better people in power until we can figure this whole thing out. Until you can do that. Or take Donald Trump up on his offer and become the 51st state, so you don't have to worry about that, because we've got him out of control here, and they're going to try and take it back. So if you guys want your freedom again, vote those people out, or start telling them you want to join the Union in the United States. Your government doesn't want it because they want the money. But the only reason your government exists is because our government is subsidizing your government to the tune of $200 billion a year. That's the economy. We're making $200 billion buying your products that we don't need in this country. You're selling your products here just to keep you alive. We're allowing you to do that. Your cars, your oil, your milk, your chocolate, right? That you guys would already get to sell anyways if you became a state to everybody. Because we subsidize our own states. We make sure that we import stuff from the East Coast out here to the West Coast, their products, and we give them our products to make sure that we keep the money going, to keep the country going, okay? So people in New York get California milk, and we get milk from Arizona, and we get, you know what I mean? We grow fruit and nuts out here, and we ship those back east where they can't grow those, and they give us products here, and that's how it works, right? So the same thing would work with you guys, which is what we're now doing for you as a sovereign nation. But without us doing that, you guys wouldn't have a country. You would have to fix your own economy and figure those things out and start making money somehow for yourselves. Right now, you depend on America for your economy. You don't have much of a military because we're protecting you. So that's why Donald Trump said, look, we'll just make you a state, because you'll have more benefits and make more money by upgrading to joining the union. I'm not trying to convince you, but I'm trying to convince you. Right? So you guys should figure that out over there, right? And then Brooke said, "Oh, I didn't know that one. I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're talking to Peter or something." Peter says it's still here. I didn't know that either. It's still here. It's still in the toothpaste. So yeah. So you guys, okay. So Ireland still has fluoride. You guys gonna get tired of the progressives over there and ban the fluoride over there. They'll tell you all your teeth are going to be screwed up. Okay. That was the only way that would work was when we didn't have braces to fix our screwed up teeth. Okay. So now it doesn't matter if you don't have fluoride, if the fluoride is going to make your teeth crooked, because we have Invisalign. I'm sure you guys have Invisalign or a version of it, right? So people don't even know you have braces on anymore because it's clear plastic and you stick them on there and you get a new one every other month and you stick them on your teeth and it fixes your teeth and it puts them back to where you want it without having the things tightened up anymore with the metal on there. Okay. So that's not a thing anymore. Well, it helps your bones. Vitamin D helps your bones, not fluoride. Fluoride does one thing: closes your third eye and solidifies it with calcium. Okay, so you need to talk and start throwing a stink and tell them that you want to get rid of the fluoride, or you make sure to get filters to filter the fluoride out of your water so you're not drinking it. Right? Okay, so I think I'm going to go. I know we only got a couple questions in. We're on question 4 or 5, but I wanted to do this in this setting. Those of you who are used to me talking to you one-on-one or on the Wednesday Zoom call, you guys are used to me doing this and talking to you about whatever you want to do. That's why a lot of you are just asking questions. Those of you around the world, if you're still here or you listen this long and you hear this, I do this off camera. If you want to ask questions, contact me either on Messenger or on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever you listen to me. There's a way to get a hold of me. If you're listening on the MP3 broadcast, you would have to go to Podbean, right? Podbean, B-E-A-N, right? Podbean, podbean.com. Go to orionrising.com/podbean.com. And then you can message me there, and I think I get an email from that. Otherwise, go to YouTube and make a comment and on my show on YouTube, message me there, or go to Facebook to my page on Facebook, or message me on Messenger on Facebook, and then then I can get the link to you if you want to come on the Zoom call to ask questions, because we're moving into a phase where some of us are going to start doing that live on air for people. Because we still know, like this, only people that want to ask questions are going to stay in the audience. I'm just trying to do it to where we don't have as many trolls, because if you just go live, you're going to have people coming in, you're crazy and screw you, and you got to boot people out. So I know that that's going to happen when I start doing it live, but that's just natural. That's what people who are psychics have to deal with as well. So I'm going to start going live on Facebook and stuff and doing just this and asking questions. But I wanted to start it in the setting of the Zoom call so that you guys could be a little bit more personal and have visuals instead of just audio, to where you can see me and I can see you, and then we can have that. And at least in Zoom, you can press a button and raise your hand, and I won't not see the chat like here. That's why I like that platform better for that setting. But I am going to be starting to do that more and answer questions, and there's other people that are going to be also answering questions and working either in a spiritual way, asking questions like I'm doing, or answering questions like I'm doing, or teaching you guys things and get guided meditations and things like that. As we go forward, we're going to expand that to help you guys out there to answer questions that most of you are starting to have around the world. Okay, so next week when I start the Law of One, I will probably start the show by explaining all of this instead of waiting until the end, so that people hear that even on the MP3 broadcast right off the get-go. And then I'll get back into the Law of One, and then also take questions like I do, because eventually we're going to phase out the Law of One, and move into helping people more one-on-one and around the world in settings, doing classes and workshops. Where we're going to be assisting you guys with different things, and many, I've already been doing this, or did this prior to this, in other groups that I still own that we kind of got away from, and now we're have people in those groups kind of starting to build up those groups again to help people And they're like, there's nobody here. And I'm like, because we didn't do anything with that group for a while, like psychic reading and development, which we turned to returning to the old ways, which I'm live on right now talking. But that group doesn't have a lot of people in it as much because there's not a lot of people in there 24 hours a day like we used to have a few years ago. Same thing with the Orion Coalition of Light. The same thing. There's not a lot of people in there posting other than me. So there's not a lot of people, a lot of interaction. And that's been done because we've consolidated everybody to the Law of One class chat and the things that we're doing in that chat, which we're probably going to change the name of that chat to keep the group that's already there and expand that as we go to other avenues. But there's a core group of us that are already working in that chat on Messenger to help you guys to learn. Okay. So if you're not there, you can always come over to Messenger, and you don't have to be on Facebook to have Messenger. You can download the Messenger app, and then you can communicate with us there. But we're going to expand to other platforms as well as people start picking the different platforms they want to be on, because we're trying to get the information out there to as many people as we can. Peter and myself are already posting on every platform. You can follow the two of us on every platform, already posting a bunch of stuff for you guys to look at every day. I post on every platform. I make a reel, a short, whatever you want to call it, and I post it on every platform. I'm on, not every platform because there's unlimited amount, but I post it on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and where else? And Twitter. Did I miss anybody? I think that those are the big ones so far. Although TikTok might be being banned here in the United States, we'll find out next week. That happens on the 18th or the 19th, I think, somewhere around there. Here in the United States, they may be banned from the United States, so I might disappear off that platform. But then there's going to be, a couple 100 million people, 300 or 400 million people that are going to disappear off that platform because the platform is going to disappear in the United States. It's already been banned in the UK, I believe. I don't think there is TikTok in the UK. So we'll see if it's banned here or not. But otherwise, I post every day. So does Peter. Almost every day, I see Peter posting on all the platforms too. So he's on Instagram. I know he's on TikTok, but I think he's on Instagram and Facebook as well. And he's posting on Messenger and all over the place too. So there's a bunch of us that are doing that already. And we're going to expand that, though, to be more interactive with you guys, to be able to guide you guys and answer questions, because around the world, there's many, many more questions than there are people answering them. But that's going to change starting in 2025, exponentially going to 2030 and beyond. Not just people that I work with, but people that are out there that are doing this on their own, that came here to do this, and other coalitions who came here to do this are starting to step up and go, by the way, hello, we're here, and we've been here, and we've been hiding, and now we're telling you who we are. Okay, guys, I love you guys. Yeah, so you're on all platforms, right? Yeah, Peter said, yeah, I'm on all platforms, right? I'm on our platforms. Yeah. So I thought you were. I thought you were on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I don't know if you're on Twitter. I don't follow you on Twitter. If you are on Twitter, let me know, and I'll where you are on Twitter, and I'll follow you there too. All right, guys. So, you guys still have TikTok over there, Joanne? I didn't know that. I thought it was banned in the UK. I thought you guys were talking about it too. You are in the UK, right? I think you're in the UK. I thought that they already banned it over there, but you guys still have it? Okay. I could have swore someone told me that you guys were working on banning it, and I assumed that it was banned. You guys ban all of our food is banned over there, right? The companies have to sell you healthy food from America. You don't get the poison from Frito-Lay or anybody else that's an American company over there. I'm glad, but I wish that we're trying to get them to upgrade and sell us the better food like they are to you guys, the same companies. They're like, oh, no, we can't change over. It costs us too much money. You're already doing it for all the other countries in the world that won't take our food. You're already making the food better for them. So if you're already doing that, you don't have to change much to stop poisoning Americans. So I was unaware that I thought that they didn't have TikTok, but you're saying they do still. So yeah, that's just disappointing. I was thinking you guys were way ahead of the curve. I was like, good for the UK. They already banned those yahoos, right? But nope, you guys haven't done it either. That sucks. So we'll see what happens if they get banned here. Donald Trump doesn't want to ban them. So he's trying to cut a deal with them so that they don't have to get banned. We'll see what they do. But we do need to change our food and stuff that's here. So, right. Yeah, you do still have it in the UK. That's funny. Okay. So I thought you guys were smart enough to ban it already. So it's too bad. I was like, woohoo, the UK, man, they're smarter than Americans. They got rid of that crap because they didn't change their algorithm. But if you're going to ban TikTok, you might as well ban Instagram too, and Facebook as well. And you know what I mean? Because and Google, because they're doing the exact same thing TikTok's doing. They're just giving the information to the English government and the American government, where TikTok is the Chinese government. They're not sharing with those oligarchs. So they're not doing anything that the other companies aren't doing other than not giving access. That's what it is. They're not giving access to the European governments, America and England. All right, guys. I love you guys. I will see you guys in the chat if you're in the Law of One chat, right? I know. I like TikTok too. Peter says TikTok rocks. I like TikTok because of the demographic. You can reach the younger kids on TikTok because that's where they mostly are. So I don't, they just got to change the algorithm and not steal the information as much as they're doing. But we need to make sure that all platforms stop stealing our information and change that in all of the internet everywhere, so that we own our own likeness and we own our own information. So if they're going to sell my information to a company that's going to be targeting me, I want some of the money that the platform is making for selling that. You'll see how quickly the platform will stop doing that when they have to cut us in to the deal for that they're selling. I want 10%. I want 25%. That's me. This is my likeness. So if you're going to sell my information to a company who's going to advertise to me, I want part of your profit, because it's me that you're selling to them. I own me. And that's what we need to get across to the internet, to these people. That'll change in time. That one might be a little harder to fix around the world, but it'll happen by 2050. All right, guys. I love you guys. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll either see you in the chat, or I'll see you on Wednesday when we do the class where we are on Zoom, or I'll see you back here on Friday. And those of you around the world, contact me if you have questions. Contact me if you want to get into the chat so that you can ask questions, or you can be a part of the Q&A that I do and other people do to help you guys in the future. I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys later, okay?